Wow, ginamit na niya. Maya.
A pleasant morning, everyone. To start off, may I request the Zoom participants to give us a quick thumbs up through the chat box just so I know that you can hear me loud and clear here in Zoom. And on that note, we would like to welcome everyone to the online training on government procurement for micro and small enterprises. Before we get started, allow me to make a few reminders. First, please change your name here in Zoom using the required format, that is your company name underscore your full name, for us to properly identify you and monitor your attendance to this virtual activity. Please keep your audio on mute during the lecture proper in order to maintain clarity and for us to properly manage the time. Additionally, please be informed that this virtual event is being recorded. Lastly, if you are experiencing technical difficulties, please let us know through the Zoom chat box, and a member of our technical team will directly coordinate with you to address your concerns. At the end of the lecture proper, we will be having the open forum. So with that, we highly encourage the participants to raise your questions all throughout the duration of this virtual activity using the Zoom chat box. We would like to remind as well our Zoom participants to please register to the online training management system of the GPPB TSO by visiting the link flashed in your screens and using the control number emailed to you by our event secretariat. Your registration in the OTMS will allow you to evaluate the resource speakers for this virtual activity, as well as the overall management of this online event, which will be our basis in the issuance of the certificates of webinar completion. Aside from the OTMS registration, we would like to request our Zoom participants to please accomplish the participant's profile sheet through Google Forms by visiting again the link or scanning the QR code flashed in your screens. This is for us to gather the respective backgrounds of your companies, the products or services you offer, and your experience in government procurement. Rest assured that the information gathered from you will be treated with utmost confidentiality and in consonance with the provisions of the Data Privacy Act. And finally, we would like to invite the participants to please do check the official social media accounts of the GPPB TSO. Just like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and subscribe to our official YouTube channel. Just type in your social media Government Procurement PH to be updated on the latest policy issuances, future webinar schedules, and other important announcements of the GPPB TSO. And having said that, allow me to make a quick shout out to our viewers in Facebook Live. A pleasant morning to our Facebook Live viewers, and thank you for joining us this morning. Moving on, let us begin by singing the Philippine National Anthem to be followed by the opening prayer. At this point, let us put ourselves in the holy presence of our Lord Jesus Christ. Loving Heavenly Father, today we thank you for giving us the opportunity to come together on this day. May you bless the speakers for the knowledge that they will share. May you bless the participants to use this knowledge to the fulfillment of their goals. May you bless all the people behind this activity so that they may continue creating procurement initiatives with a spirit of joy and utmost passion. We seek for your guidance as we ask this in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. Amen. Once again, a pleasant morning to everyone and welcome to the online training on government procurement for micro and small enterprises brought to you by the Government Procurement Policy Board Technical Support Office. I am Maki Taguba of the Capacity Development Division of the GPPB-TSO, and I will be your host for today's virtual activity. And to officially commence this online event, I would like to welcome the Executive Director of the Government Procurement Policy Board Technical Support Office to give her opening message. Please welcome Attorney Rowena Candice Ruiz.
Thank you, Maki, and good morning to everyone. First of all, allow me to thank all of you for accepting our invite to this online event. I also want to equally thank the DTI Bureau of Small and Medium Enterprise Development for supporting us in this particular endeavor. As you will see later on in the program, we will be showing you an audiovisual presentation of the many reform initiatives of the Government Procurement Policy Board as well as its Technical Support Office. You would see that the GPPB and its TSO has been really working hard to make procurement more responsive and agile, particularly during this pandemic. That is why last year we initiated dialogue with the DTI, the FDA, and the DOST PNRI in order for us to be able to see what other measures we can do to be able to encourage local suppliers, particularly those that have decided to shift to manufacturing medical kits, supplies, and PPEs in order for them to better understand the application of domestic preference as well as the other regulatory offices' requirements for registration, licensing, and certification. And that is why, after that coordination dialogue, we were able to immediately conduct an online workshop last September of 2020 in order to price local suppliers on domestic preference rules, particularly in support of the Bayanihan Acts. And we are very grateful that just recently we have ask for updates on the registration or certification of domestic preference from the DTI, and we now have more than 100 goods having been certified now as a result of the dialogue and initiatives of the Government Procurement Policy Board Technical Support Office. And that is why we are continuing this support measures and initiatives towards our stakeholders, particularly MSMEs, because it is very evident that MSMEs are one of the most valued stakeholders in public procurement. That's why for today and the next 3 days, we have curated for you a program which to our mind will help you better understand, be better informed, and appreciate public procurement rules, policies, and initiatives. But more important than that, it is also an opportunity for us to be able to hear from you. That is why we highly encourage you to participate in all of the activities. There would be activities in between the online workshop. At the same time, as earlier Maki requested you, please do register in our OTMS. We will be using the data there to be able to come up with a more robust directory of local suppliers, particularly MSMEs in the Philippines, because this will not certainly be the last activity that we will be working on to better support our MSMEs. So with that again, I encourage you to engage, participate, ask questions, and give feedbacks and suggestions so we can do and we can improve our work and do better public procurement policies and activities for all of you. So once again, a pleasant morning and have a great, informative, interesting, educational, and actively participate in our 3-day online session. Back to you, Maki.
All right, thank you so much, Attorney Ruiz, for officially opening today's virtual activity. At this point, before we dive to the program proper, let me give you an overview of the program of activities for this 3-day online training on government procurement. With the goal of supporting micro and small enterprises in the country, the GPPB-TSO curated this online training on government procurement specifically designed for micro and small enterprises to capacitate your knowledge in government procurement rules and processes, which would hopefully encourage and empower you to participate in the procurement undertakings of the government. And with that, for today's session, we'll be tackling the simplified Philippine bidding documents for goods and infrastructure projects, to be followed by a discussion on the overview of the online blacklisting portal. On the second day of the program, we will have the entire session to discuss the standard bidding procedures for goods and infrastructure projects. And finally, for the third and last day of the program, we have invited our seasoned resource speakers to discuss ethics in government procurement and the guide for the use of the Philippine Government Electronic Procurement System, or PhilGEPS. So with that, we have a jam-packed 3-day program ahead of us. So please make sure to bring your A game starting today until Friday, and we look forward for everyone to learn a lot from this online training program. At this point, before we dive to the lecture proper, we will be playing an audiovisual presentation on the efficient and responsive procurement reforms and measures, as well as the latest policy issuances of the GPPB TSO. So with that, please watch this.
Barely 2 months into 2020, and as countries grapple to contain the coronavirus pandemic, we saw an unprecedented disruption of the global supply chain, with most countries implementing varying levels of lockdown and quarantine measures. Manufacturers and suppliers had very limited operations, with their raw materials and supply source unable to reach their factories and shops, with a temporary embargo on freight and logistics. In some cases, for the first time, to procure personal protective equipment and related supplies. What used to be a procurement project undertaken by hospitals and allied medical offices is now trusted upon most government procurement practitioners. This poses a huge risk to the quality of procurement, as procuring entities scramble to buy in large quantities in the fastest time possible, but with asymmetrical or limited market information. Moreover, with the community quarantine being imposed in most parts of the country, particularly in urban areas, a number of prospective bidders were unable to physically submit or attend pre-bid conference and opening of bids, resulting in a number of cancelled or even failed biddings. And with telecommuting being implemented in most government agencies, the conduct of procurement activities was made even more challenging given the unreliable internet connection, traditional paper-based records keeping, and with some official documents requiring handwritten signatures for processing, all of which compounded the already difficult and complex work of government procurement practitioners. Emergency procurement in times of crisis inevitably opens door for inefficient acquisitions by people under severe time pressure, for some unintentionally but others occurring as a result of corruption. As we have seen other countries struggle in the response to the pandemic, the Philippines, through the Government Procurement Policy Board Technical Support Office, foresaw the need to anticipate procurement constraints given the grave and possibly prolonged effects of the coronavirus pandemic. As early as March 9, 2020, the GPPB met and issued Resolution Number 03-2020 adopting efficient, effective, and expedient procurement procedures during a state of public health emergency. As shown here, negotiated procurement under emergency cases can now be undertaken with 4 simple steps. This was made possible with the streamlining of the existing procedure being undertaken. Thus, the rules now dispense with the requirement of a written confirmation from the head of the procuring entity of the existence and veracity of the grounds relied upon. The board likewise expressly included the instances or situations where emergency procurement may be applied, such as the provision of immediate response and initial recovery steps to avoid loss of life, injury, disease, and other negative effects on human physical, mental, and social well-being, together with damage to property, destruction of assets, loss of services, social and economic disruption, and environmental degradation, as well as the lease of real property or venue for use as quarantine centers, evacuation sites, medical relief and aid distribution, locations, warehousing facilities, or similar temporary disaster or emergency response facility. This enabled procuring entities to readily adopt emergency procurement for the purchase of COVID-19 related items. Upon the declaration of a state of public health emergency by the President, the GPPB Technical Support Office immediately coordinated with the Department of Health and the Procurement Service to identify items that will be needed by most agencies so they can be included in the list of common use supplies and equipment which the Procurement Service can buy in bulk and take advantage of economies of scale. This includes alcohol, sanitizers, thermometers, personal protective equipment, gloves, mask testing kits, among others. Agencies can then readily purchase these items from the procurement service when available, giving them more time to focus on other equally important tasks. And when Congress passed the Bayanihan to Heal as One Act, the GPPB immediately issued the Bayanihan Procurement Rules, which included a provision on direct purchase from local farmers. The board likewise simplified the documentary requirements for this modality. Accordingly, procuring entities intending to directly buy from a local farmer need only to ask a submission of any of the following: a certification from the Department of Agriculture that the farmer is in the registry system for basic sectors in agriculture, or RSBSA, or his RSBSA identification card, or a barangay certification that he is a bona fide farmer. We also approved the adoption and use of simplified PBDs, or public bidding documents for goods and infrastructure projects, or the 6th edition PBDs. This was done through Resolution number 15-2020 dated July 28, 2020.
Will be the primary document.
Basic doctor now is quite big. At least kung we set all of the rules and the guidelines inside, nakapost siya sa website, we have to replicate it in the videos. Just limit it to several pages para ma-minimize natin ang failure.
It may be noted that the PBDs for the procurement of goods have been reduced to 40 pages from the original 112 pages, while infrastructure projects went down to 35 pages from the original of 113 pages. The GPPB came up with a simplified version of the previous edition to address the confusion and varied interpretations of the procuring entities and bidders on the clauses of the 5th edition PBDs in relation to the provision of RA 9184 and associated issuances. The sheer volume of the previous PBDs and resulting confusion and differing interpretation caused a significant number of disqualification and ultimately failure of biddings. With the simplified PBDs and its accompanying circular, procuring entities are easily guided by the standard rules in the use of the PBDs, which uses clear and simple language. The simplification of the PBDs came after 4 grueling months of studying the repeated queries posed by procuring entities in the use of the PBDs, as well as reviewing the common causes of disqualification and conducting a series of consultation with procuring entities, before the same was made effective last October 6, 2020. The GPPB TSO likewise held an online unboxing event last September 21, 2020, together with the Secretary Avisado, followed by a webinar to discuss the contents of the PBDs and address clarificatory questions. The simplification of the PBDs is but a first step in streamlining the conduct of public procurement. The GPPB Technical Support Office, in collaboration with the United States Agency for International Development, established the Online PBD Builder. This is a web-based online facility that will assist procuring entities in preparing their PBDs. With a simple click of a button, procuring entities need only to encode the details of their procurement projects, choose from drop-down options, and upload the bidding documents when finished. That is all there is to it. No more errors, no more confusion, no more double-checking of updated forms, no more repetitive downloading of files. We officially launched the Online PBD Builder last January 20, 2021 during the 3rd Annual Procurement Forum. For the first time, the Commission on Audit and the GPPB issued a joint memorandum circular last March 26, 2020, expressly providing that during the state of public health emergency declared by the President, procuring entities are allowed to resort to negotiated procurement emergency cases for the procurement of goods, infrastructure projects, and consulting services that are directly related to the mitigation and containment of the transmission of COVID-19 in order for procuring entities to properly and timely respond to this public health emergency. This joint issuance by the COA and the GPPB provided confidence to procuring entities which have been risk-averse in the use of emergency procurement for fear of COA observation or disallowance. In consideration of the limited access to financial institutions, regulatory and other offices, as well as the implementation of government restrictions on transport and travel, the GPPB allowed procuring entities to accept alternate documentary requirements for procurement activities undertaken during a state of calamity or during the implementation of community quarantine or similar restrictions, declared or being implemented either in the locality of the procuring entity or of the bidder. This includes a notarized bid securing declaration, expired business or mayor's permit with official receipt of renewal application, a notarized omnibus sworn statement, and performance securing declaration in lieu of a performance security to guarantee the winning bidder's faithful performance of obligations under the contract, all of which are subject to compliance with the lacking requirement after award of contract but before payment. And with the birth of a totally different procurement ecosystem resulting from this pandemic, the GPPB reminded procuring entities on the use of video conferencing and other digital technologies, which was authorized way back in 2018. This will be used in the conduct of procurement activities such as pre-bid conference, opening of bids, and post-qualification activities. The board also allowed the suspension of procurement activities beginning March 9, 2020, following the declaration by the President of a state of public health emergency throughout the Philippines, subject to the determination by the BAC of the existence of any of the grounds for suspension of the conduct of procurement activities. This includes subsequent tolling of the periods for the procurement projects covered by the suspension, including the running of the 3-month period to award the contract and terminate the procurement process under Section 38 of Republic Act No. 9184. The board, mindful of the concerns in the issuance of the CNAS or the Certificate of Non-Availability of Stocks for common use supplies and equipment not available with the PS, has come up with an innovative way to enable procuring entities to procure the same elsewhere without securing a CNAS. Thus, procuring entities need only to keep a record of the proof of unavailability of the CSE as shown in the PS website, such as a printed form of the web page or a screenshot of the same showing the date and time that it was accessed. The GPPB TSO, even prior to the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, has been issuing anticipatory non-policy matter opinions to readily guide procuring entities in the conduct of their procurement projects and address frequently asked questions. This has proven to be useful in providing immediate relief to procuring entities who are in need of clarifications in their interpretation of rules, especially under a work-from-home arrangement. For smart and efficient conduct of BAC activities, the GPPB as early as 2018 has authorized virtual meetings of the Bids and Awards Committee, and in 2019, it encouraged the use of digital signature in all procurement-related documents. While the uptick was a bit slow when these were authorized, it dramatically changed with the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic this year, making virtual meetings and the use of digital signature very much a staple in the new normal. The COVID-19 pandemic accelerated many of our digital transformation initiatives, among which is the mandatory electronic submission of procurement reports and our ongoing automation efforts, all aimed at establishing a structured data management system crucial in providing evidence-based policy recommendations to the GPPB and for a meaningful and timely procurement monitoring. This year, we also started with the use of data analytics in extending interim procurement diagnostics to pilot agencies. To complete the online transformation in the conduct of public procurement, the GPPB has authorized electronic and online bid submission. Any form of electronic submission that carries a two-factor security procedure may be used for the submission of bids to ensure the security, integrity, and confidentiality thereof. Currently, there are 179 procuring entities using electronic bid submission. Once again, with the technical assistance from the United States Agency for International Development or USAID, the GPPB TSO was able to launch and utilize the GPPB online portal, ensuring greater transparency and accountability for procurements conducted pursuant to the Bayanihan to Heal as One Act. Given the posting limitations of the PhilJeps, the GPPB TSO sought the help of USAID to develop this portal and provide the digital space for procuring entities to post all of their awarded contracts pursuant to the Bayanihan Act. We are currently finalizing the data analytics of the buying patterns of the government, both national and local, in response to this pandemic. Contract and supplier details are likewise available online without need for registration. Just go to our website at www.gppb.gov.ph and look for the icon GPPB Online Portal. Indeed, public accountability can never be sacrificed over expediency, even in times of crisis. By providing an open and inclusive digital space through the GPPB Online Portal, we are able to spot questionable procurement projects and call on procuring entities to account for their actions. On the other hand, the GPPB Online Blacklisting Portal is an in-house developed platform by our very own Information Management Division in the GPPB Technical Support Office. It was developed primarily to ensure timely, accurate, and complete information on blacklisted entities. The OBP, as we call it, has an automatic notification feature to the PhilJeps for blacklisted entities suspended by a procuring entity. This signals the PhilJeps to cancel the registration of the blacklisted supplier for the covered period. This will then prevent the award of contracts by other procuring entities to the said blacklisted supplier. Secondly, and this is why the development of the OBP was accelerated, to complement the virtual conduct of post-qualification proceedings in light of the health safety protocols being imposed all over the country. Procuring entities and the public in general can now readily access the consolidated blacklisting report online through the GPPB website. Just look for the OBP icon. And because transparency in procurement also means empowering stakeholders with accurate and timely information through effective and innovative channels in order to bridge the gap on access to information brought about by this pandemic, the GPPB TSO can now be reached through Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Just look for Government Procurement PH. To complement this, we have likewise been using information, education, and communication materials such as infographics, as well as audiovisual presentations on our website and social media pages. Beginning April of this year, we have shifted to digital learning with the conduct of and participation in webinars, online trainings, online ugnayan, and with the launch of our digital learning series. With more than 30 online training programs and webinars participated by almost 9,000 procurement practitioners, suppliers, and CSO representatives, and joined by more than 200,000 Facebook viewers, we were able to effectively disseminate the changes and enhancements implemented to assist procuring entities in their procurement activities. Maraming salamat po sa inyong suporta. With your trust and support, we in the GPPB Technical Support Office are here to make things happen.
All right, thank you so much for watching the EVP on the efficient procurement measures and latest policy issuances of the GPPB TSO. For more AVPs on government procurement, please visit the official website of the Government Procurement Policy Board Technical Support Office at www.gppb.gov.ph. Before we move on, to those who joined just now here in Zoom, a pleasant morning po. And please do change your name here in Zoom using the required format, that is your company name _ your full name, for us to properly identify you and monitor your attendance all throughout the duration of this virtual activity. At this point, let us now move on to the lecture proper for the first topic for this online training. With that, allow me to introduce our first research speaker this morning. Our research speaker this morning has been in the government service for 35 years. He recently retired as a corporate executive officer under the Engineering and Facilities Management Department of the Social Security System. Without further ado, please welcome our first research speaker this morning, Engineer Baltazar Cahilig.
Thank you, Maki. And of course, good morning to all our webinar participants from the small and micro enterprise. And we're here for the seminar proper for the PBDs, the procurement bidding documents. Now, to start with, I would like, of course, to inform the participants that these particular PBDs are supposed to be for the procurement, the procuring agencies only, meaning the government. But for this particular seminar, siyempre kung ano yung ginagawa ng gobyerno, dapat i-share sa inyo bilang enterprise so that when you participate in the public bidding, you will know how the government do this, and of course, to inform you of all the requirements of this PBD. So, again, sa lahat, magandang umaga, and sana you will be informed. And of course, kung sino ho ang pwede kong matanong, kung by sharing my slide, can I ask if a thumbs up kung okay ho ba ang slides ko? Thumbs up. Okay, okay. So now, let me start with this Simplified Philippine Bidding Documents, or PBDs for short, for goods and infra. Okay. Ito po ang outline natin today. One, it's about the contents of the simplified PBDs for goods and infra. And then next one would be the preparation of the simplified PBDs for goods and infra projects. So ang objective po natin for this morning is the participants should be able to understand the contents and required forms of the simplified bidding documents for goods and infra projects. And of course, ito na tayo. Ano ho ba itong Philippine bidding documents? The Philippine bidding documents, or the PBDs, are documents issued by, sinasabi ko kanina, by the procuring entity. Ito yung mga taga-gobyerno, yung procuring entity, to provide the prospective bidders like you when you participate in the public bidding, to provide you with all the necessary information that you will need for the preparation of your bids, just in case nasasali nga ho kayo. Ano ba ang meron doon? The PBD clearly and adequately define the following: scope of work, yung approved budget for the contract, or the ABC, ang tinatawag na ABC, the duration, the outputs of the contract. Nandun din ho ang minimum legal, technical, and financial requirements for the eligible bidders, as well as documents and other requirements that the bidder must include in his bid. Lahat ho ito ay kailangan, una-una, para maiwasan yung sinasabing failed bid or nadi-disqualify dahil kulang. Okay? So, yung mga procuring entities naman, because of this simplified PBDs, pwede naman ho nilang i-further customize to suit their particular needs. So, nakalagay ho ito sa mga GPBB circular na the procuring entity can customize the PBDs according to their needs nga, but subject to the approval of the GPPB. And they can also, or the PE can also specify or shall specify in the PBDs the requirements, the criteria, and the other conditions of the bidding procedures and the ensuing contract as applicable to its procurement of the procurement project in case of mixed. May mga mixed procurement po kasi minsan. Okay? Now, nasabi nga ho kanina na ang pinagmulan ho nito, actually, initiative ito lahat-lahat ng GPBB TSO sa pangunguna ng ating executive director, yung nagsalita kanina na magaling, magandang boses, si Attorney Weng. So, naaprubahan ho naman ng Government Procurement Policy Board. Ito na nga ho yung resolution number 15-2020 of the GPPB dated 28 noong July 2020. It approved the adoption of the 6th edition of the PBD. Ito yung papag-usapan natin. Yung 6th edition. Yung nakaraan, yun yung 5th edition. So ito na yung pinakabago, 6th edition. Ang effectivity po nito ay last October 6, 2020. Meaning, lahat ho ng procuring entities, mga taga-gobyerno, ito na ho ang dapat gamitin. So hindi na ho yung nakaraang 5th edition. 5th edition. Excuse me. Now, there was another GPPB resolution na published and took effect last 26 September 2020, approving the guidelines on the preparation of simplified PBDs for goods and infra projects and submission of the required forms. So approve na ho ang guidelines nito. Yung preparation at saka yung mga required forms. May mga format na ho na mamaya pag-uusapan natin. It also approved the use of PBD Builder in the GPPB online portal for the online. So sabi ko dito, yung PBD Builder ho nito ay para sa taga-procuring entity pa rin, mga taga-gobyerno, para mas mabilis silang gumawa ng PBD. Pero pwede pa rin manual. Ano-ano ho ang reasons bakit sinimplify ang ating PBDs? Nakita ho ng mga taga-GPPB, particularly ang mga taga-GPPB TSO, saka kanilang mga PWG or Technical Working Group, yung mga discrepancies sa rules, may mga confusions in the use of bidding forms. Kasi nung una, maraming mga tanong ho yun eh. Saka mayroong mga varying formats of the PBD at saka yung bidding forms. Saka yung may mga language doon na hindi nagmamatch. So ito yung mga ibang reasons. Ito yung maraming reasons na sinimplify ho yung PBDs. Ano naman ang naging strategy ho ng GPPB for this simplification? Dinidate ho nila yung clauses na may legal basis. Saka kinumbine po nila, they combine the repetitive clauses. So yung magkapare-parehas, sinama na nila and included the deleted portions sa generic procurement manual. Okay? Ito yung strategy ho nila. Kaya ang nangyari ito na yung yung updated. Another strategy, ito separated the bidding forms from the PBDs. separated the section for the foreign assisted projects. And then they also updated refined the provisions in the PBD. So ito na yung mga strategies nila sa simplification. Now, bakit ito? Why only goods and civil works? Mayroon, di ba, sa procurement ng gobyerno, dapat goods, infra, at saka consulting services. Pero dito sa statistics, ang karamihan mga ginagamit or nag-post nung bid notices nila ay procurement lang ho ng goods at saka infra. So, titingnan nyo ho sa slides natin, almost 2% lang yung consulting services nung 2019. Samantalang yung goods, saka yung infra, goods particularly, more than 40% ang posted bid notices. While sa infra naman, almost 60%. So yun munang sinimulan ng GPPB. Siguro later on, magkakaroon din ng pagbabago yung consulting services. Okay. Now, ano-ano ho yung contents nitong simplified PBDs? Number 1, ang laking pagbabago sa pages pa lang ho. From the 5th edition to the now the 6th edition, from 112 pages, naging 40 pages na lang sa goods. Ang infra naman, from 114 pages, naging 36 pages na lang po. So, simplified na simplified. Ang laki ng nabawas na pages doon sa mga gagawin nating, yung mga gagawin ng mga bidders. As well, of course, nung procuring entity na sinasabi ko na sila ang nagpe-prepare nitong PBD para sa kanilang procurement projects. So, malaking kabawasan sa trabaho, kumbaga, malaking kabawasan sa papel, etc. Now, ano-ano ang mga features nitong 6 PBDs? 6th edition PBDs. Sa number of sections, yung from the 5th to the 6th, sa goods, section ay nabawasan ng isa, naging from 9 naging 8. Sa infra naman, from the 10 sections, naging 9. Sa number of clauses naman, on the 5th edition, ang goods 65, yun ang malaking pagbabago. From the 65 clauses, naging 27 na lang. Because doon sa nauna nating sinabi kanina na strategies nila, nag-combine, etc. And then sa infrastructure naman, from 85 clauses, naging 37. So all in all, ito na yung pages na yung goods sa 6th edition, from 112, naging 42. Sa infra naman po ay from 113, naging 36. Okay, ano pa mga bagong feature or new features of the 6th edition? Mayroon na hong glossary of acronyms, terms and abbreviations, doon sa una pa lang, sa umpisa pa lang. By the way, may I suggest kung yung mga participants po na hindi pa or wala pang kopya ng itong 6th edition ng PBDs na pinag-uusapan natin, pwede ho itong i-download, by the way, sa gppb.gov.ph. So, itong mga bagong sections, nandun na yung glossary of acronyms, terms and abbreviations. So, makikita doon yung example lang, XW. X-works pa lang ibig sabihin na. Okay? Another one, yung number 2 na new sections ay yung checklist of the technical and financial documents. Sa huling portion ho yun. So, makikita nyo ito pag nag-download ho kayo ng PBDs sinasabi natin. So, again, suggestion, pagkatapos ng seminar, yung mga hindi pa nakapag-download, I suggest po mag-download na ho kayo. Okay. Ano-ano yung mga contents ng 6th edition PBDs? Number 1, yung ABC, Approved Budget for the Contract. So magkano ang budget ng kontrata. Normally, ano ba ang relevance nitong ABC? Yun ang ceiling sa bidding ng gobyerno, yun po ang ceiling. Meaning, you cannot bid above the ceiling or else disqualified yung bid ninyo. Okay, so yun. Then next would be the invitation to bid. Scope of bid, documents comprising the bid, the criteria for eligibility, the evaluation criteria, the time and place for the procurement activities. Ayan, importante ito. Dito na minsan nangyayari na nagkakaroon ng mga nababalitaan nating oras, yung lugar kung saan dapat i-submit ang bid docs. Yung iba, di ba? Dahil sa oras, importante yung oras, yung iba nakukulong sa elevator, yung iba naman nalilate, etc. Pero beside the point yun. Pero ang importante, nandun ito sa ating 6th edition. And then, the technical specifications, saka yung delivery date. Ito, applicable na ho ito or mandatory na ho ito sa gobyerno noong October 6, 2020. Pag sinabi ko gobyerno, yun yung mga procuring entities na inuulit ko taga-gobyerno. Siyempre, itong PBDs na ito ay of course ang Republic Act 9184 ay Government Procurement Act po ito. So, taga-gobyerno ang gumagamit nito. Okay? Now, yung contents na ito yon. 1, sa goods. Sa slide, makikita nyo na ito, mayroong goods sa kaliwa ng slide natin at saka sa kanan yung info projects. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, pare-pareha sila from invitation to bid up to number 5, special conditions of the contract. Now, doon sa number 6, sa goods, schedule of requirements. While sa infrastructure, specifications na. And the number 7, sa goods, technical specifications. Number 7 sa kabila or sa infra, drawing. Siyempre, infrastructure project, may mga, kumbaga sa mga plano. And then, sa number 8, walang kasunod na number 9 yung kabila, meaning, ang end nila is the checks, end ng goods. 6th edition ay checklist of technical and financial documents. Na sinasabi ko, bago po ito, di ba? While doon sa infra, mayroon pa silang 9 na bill of quantities. Yun ang pinipilapan ng mga contractors sa civil works or sa infrastructure projects. So may bill of quantities. And then, yun pa rin, ang last nila is of course yung checklist. Pareha silang may checklist of technical and financial documents. Okay. Now, ano naman ang mga salient changes in the PBD contents? So dahil sa ginawang trabaho ng mga taga-GPPB, particularly ang mga taga-PSO na naaprubahan na naman ng board, ito yung mga salient changes. Sa invitation to bid na na-discuss natin a while ago, mayroon ng bid submission, may manual at saka may electronic. Dati ho kasi manual lang. So ngayon, pwedeng manual pa rin, meaning magsasubmit ang mga bidders ng bid docs manually, and nadagdag ang electronic submission or online method via internet. Okay? So pwede ring dalawa. Yun ang mga salient changes. Number 2, use of web casting and video conferencing sa mga back proceedings. Dahil dati ho kasi pag nagmi-meeting ang back, di ba? By the way, pag nagmi-meeting ho ang mga back ng government, dapat present ay ang either back chairman or ang back vice chairman plus members of the back para magkaroon sila ng quorum. Eh dahil nagkaroon ng pandemic, pag wala itong webcasting at saka video conferencing, eh hindi nagkakaroon ng quorum. Kasi doon sa sinasabi ko, dapat pag wala yung chairman ng back, dapat nandun at least yung vice chairman plus yung mga members niya na quorum. Kung 5, dapat 3 sila ang attend. Eh minsan hindi ho nakakakuha ng mga ganong attendance. So with this, halos wala ng lahat ng mga hindi na makapalag, meaning kasi nakakagamit na sila ng webcasting. Kahit sa bahay lang sila through cellphone, they can attend the back proceedings. Present na sila. Okay, so wala na hong masyadong failed meeting sila. Okay? Kasi yung back, dapat may quorum para valid yung meeting nila. And then number 3, salient changes ay yung use of backup data or cloud storage for large file para sa online submission. So ito wala noon. Number 4, internet links are provided for downloading of the bidding documents and online bid submission. Okay? So ito yung mga changes sa invitation to bid. Sa instruction to bidders naman po, ano mga salient changes? Yung funding information ay nakalagay na. Funding information is now distinguished with respect to the procurement activities. Pag sinasabi ho natin dito sa slide na ito, ITB clause number 2, yun ang basehan, nandun nakalagay yan. So yan ang sinasabi kong ITB, makikita po ninyo yan sa actual na da-download ninyong 6th edition. Okay? Number 2, sa mga salient changes, there is one general statement that state na ang 2016 revised IRR and its associated issuances shall be the primary source of the bidding requirements. So, yung bidder, kung kayo yung mga bidder, normally, ang sasabihin ng, may mga tanong ho kasi, ano ba ang basihan? So, ina-assume ng mga taga-gobyerno o ng mga procuring entity na lahat ng basihan should be coming from that 2016 revised IRR of the RA 9184 at saka yung associated issuances. So, yun ang source ng bidding requirements. So, in-emphasize lang ho yan dito sa instruction to bidders para malinaw, lalong-lalo na sa mga taga-gobyerno. Laging, meron ho kasing mga na ganyan na bakit hindi specific na nakalagay yung meaning may conflict. So, with this statement, with this general statement, panlaban ng gobyerno yun, ng procuring entity sa mga tanong or sa mga conflict. Now, another one, yung PBDs for goods now clarifies on firms having foreign ownership that would like to participate in the bidding of goods. So, clarified na yan. Doon sa instruction to bidder clause number 5.2. Number 4, it included the submission of eligibility documents to the implementing or end user unit for that subcontracting is allowed during contract implementation. Ito yung bago. So, meron ng submission ng eligibility documents. Kung yung procuring entity ay nag-a-allow ng subcontracting. Discretion ho yun ng mga procuring entity. So, pina-include na dapat mag-submit din kayo ng eligibility documents yung subcontractor niya. Normally, ang pinapasubcontract ay up to 20% ng project cost lang ng project. Now, another one, doon sa mga foreign bidders, only translated documents shall be authenticated through the apostille pursuant to GPPB Resolution number 2019. So, may mga kasi may mga foreign bidders na dati-dati mahirap po itong authentication. Ngayon, pag yung sasaling foreigner, kasali na sila doon sa Apostille Convention sa Hague, ito sa Netherlands, nandun yung mga listahan nila na hindi na kailangan, meaning na-simplify na rin ang pag-authenticate ng mga translated documents nila. Okay? So, pinaikli, kumbaga. So, para mabilis din silang makasali. And then, number 5, paraphrase the bid and payment currencies. The PBDs to include a qualification that the foreign denomination shall be accepted or tradable by the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. So dati peso lang, pesos, PHP. Ngayon pwede na, basta tradable siya ng BSP. Okay? Ito ang clauses again. Clause number 13 sa goods, clause number 14 para sa infra. And number 6, the PBDs for goods now clarifies or firms on having foreign ownership that would like to participate on the public bidding of goods. Again, nakalagay yon sa instruction to bidder clause number 5.2. Number 7, itong importante na dapat nating tandaan. Salient change na ito. The bidders are only required to submit only one copy of the technical and financial components, while allowing the PE to request the bidder for additional soft and hard copies. So, pwede silang maghingi pa rin. Pero ito, may importante, sinasabi ko, na however, failure of the bidders to provide the additional copies shall not be ground for disqualification. Okay? So, ang basihan niyan, yan, ITB clause number 15 sa goods, ITB clause number 16 sa infra. So, isang kopya lang pwede nang isubmit ng bidder. So, again, yung may mga procuring entity na kagaya ng, ayun, yung pinanggalingan ko po, yung SSS, nagre-require pa rin sila ng another additional copy. Pero kahit hindi magbigay or hindi mag-submit ang mga bidder, hindi siya ground for disqualification. So yun ang tandaan natin. Number 8, kung ang PE, if the PE or the procuring entity or yung taga-gobyerno allows online or electronic bid submission, the bid shall be digitally signed. So, digital signature lang ang kailangan. Pero, if the file is corrupted, so, minsan kasi, pag binubuksan na, siguro na, I don't know, depende siguro, baka yung storage niya or yung nilagyan niya ng file or yung na-corrupt nung ipinadala through online. Ang ibig sabihin nun, disqualified na po yun. Considered non-responsive na. Automatic disqualified yun. So, see to it na kung kayo po ang magiging bidder o yung kaibigan nyo ang magiging bidder, tandaan nyo ito, tandaan nila ito, na dapat yung file ay hindi corrupted at nabubuksan during the opening of the bid. Siyempre may corresponding mga yan. Excuse me. May mga formats. So taga-IT ako ang marunong nito. So see to it, yung mga IT people nila, alam na to. Okay? May mga passwords so yan eh. Ito naman, para sa naman salient feature naman or salient changes sa GCC or the general conditions of the contract. There is one general statement under the scope of contract which also provides that the 2016 IRR of Republic Act number 9184 is the primary legal source for the conditions of the contract. So, meaning, kung mayroong mga pagbabago, then may conflict, normally, this particular provision will govern kung sakali lang na may pagbabago or mayroong may discrepancy or hindi nagtutugma. Pero kanina, sinasabi nga ng ating executive director, pag ang gagamitin ng taga-gobyerno or mga procuring entity ay ang PBD builder, online na yon, hindi na ito mangyayari, kumbaga. Pag ang ginamit ay PBD builder. So, tugma na yon kasi nga, computerized na ho yun eh. Another condition, another salient change in the PBD contents dito sa general conditions of the contract ay advance payment and terms of payment have also been clarified sa PBD for goods. So yan. Ito naman, under framework agreement, yung framework agreement to, ito yung parang option contract ito ng mga taga-gobyerno. Yung minsan bibili, kunyari, ang bibilin mo ay maramihan, let's say gasolina or yung quantity ay nadidetermine mo ang quantity at the outset pero hindi mo ma-determine pa agad kung kailan siya kailangan. So nagre-resort ang gobyerno dito sa framework agreement. So mayroong GPPB resolution for this sa framework agreement. Pero for us ngayon, ang pinag-aralan lang po natin ay ang for goods and infra projects. Nevertheless, baka pwede rin ho kayong sumali sa dito sa bidding ng gobyerno na ang requirement ay framework agreement. Sinasabi ko nga, ito ay bidding ng mga taga-gobyerno para doon sa mga requirements nila na meron ng volume. Let's say for example, may 1-year volume na sila pero hindi kagad pinapadeliver kasi walang bodega ang gobyerno. So ito yung ginagamit. Ito yung framework agreement. So magbibid kayo para sa total volume pero ang gobyerno ay may option na pwedeng bilhin lahat or pwedeng huwag bilhin lahat. Ito yun. So meron hong ang framework agreement ay makikita pa rin sa gppb.gov.ph. Number 2, sa salient change sa PBD, sa framework agreement, discuss na rin natin konti, ay may bagong clause na the framework agreement clauses in the new PBD have instructions or excerpts from the guidelines on the use of framework agreement. So again, these guidelines on the use of framework agreement can be downloaded sa gppb.gov.ph. Okay. Now, let's go to the preparation of the simplified PBDs. Preparation ito ng mga taga-procuring entities. Na pag nalaman nyo na, of course, ang nakabisado nyo na, paano pag-prepare. So kung sasali ho kayo sa bidding, alam nyo na. Kasi merong, kumbaga, talent ho ito. Meaning yung mga taga-gobyerno, dahil palagi na nilang ginagawa, abisado na ho nila ito. Now, yung mga taga-private sector naman na gustong sumali sa bidding ng gobyerno, kailangan makabisado na rin ito. Okay? So, again, inuulit ko, ang preparation ng PBD ay covered ng GPPB, ng bagong PBD, ay covered ng GPPB Resolution number 16-2020, which was published and took effect on September 26, 2020, approved the guidelines on the preparation of the simplified PBDs for goods in infra, as well as the submission of the required forms for all procurement projects. Pero ang taga-gobyerno, October 6, mandatory na po ito sa kanila. Now, ito yun. The RA 9184 and its 2016 revised IRR, including the generic procurement manual. Now, ano ba tong generic procurement manual? Ito yung guide ng gobyerno sa procurement. Na yung kopya po dito, again, can also be downloaded sa gppb.gov.ph. Ito yung basehan ng gobyerno sa procurement. Para sa goods, para sa infra, at saka para sa consultancy. So meron yun. Ito, ang sinasabi dito na yung 2016 revised IRR at saka ang provisions doon sa generic procurement manual at saka yung associated issuances shall apply in the use of and implementation of the PBDs. The procuring entities are mandated to use the latest approved PBDs and the standard forms to be submitted by the bidder under section 17.1 and 23 of the 2016 revised IRR. Okay. Now, kanina pa ho ako nagsasalita or nagsasabi na about this 2016 revised IRR. So, ang advice again sa lahat ng mga gustong sumali sa procurement ng government, dapat makasecure or makaproduce, or you can have a copy of this or you can download the copy of this 2016 revised IRR. So, walang bayad, download lang sa website ng gppb.gov.ph. Okay? So, itong another sa preparation ito sa taga-gobyerno ito na pwede nilang i-customize ang PBDs. Depende sa kanilang special procurement. Pero dapat pag nag-customize ang taga-gobyerno, meaning ang mga procuring entity for their PBDs, there should be an approval or it is subject to the approval ng GPPB. So, hindi pwedeng mag-customize nang walang approval. Ang ibig sabihin nun. And then the procuring entity shall specify in the PBDs the requirements, the criteria, and other conditions of the bidding procedures and issuing contract. Nabanggit na ho natin to kanina. So, ito ang importante reminder that the procuring entity shall not amend the required documents or info in the section 17 and 23 of the 2016 RIR of RA 9184 on the form and contents of the PBDs and the eligibility requirements. Or, number 2, require the bidders to submit additional eligibility documents other than that what are required under the said rules. So, yun, mandate yan sa mga taga-procuring entity. Minsan may mga procuring entity, I don't know kung anong reason or hindi nila alam pa itong batas na to. So, they should be reminded by this. So, kung kayo ang nakakaalam, pwede kayo na lang mag-remind sa kanila of this. Na hindi sila pwedeng mag-amend the required documents and info doon sa section 17 and 23 of the 2016 IRR of RA 9184. So, yan. Yung mga ganyan Importante ho yan sa inyong kaalaman, particularly kung yun nga, mayroon kayong later on, magbibid na ho kayo sa gobyerno. Sa mga foreign assisted projects naman, ito, may item number 7 ng circular. Unless a treaty or international executive agreement states the use of another set of bidding documents, the PE shall likewise utilize the PBD and the required forms for their foreign assisted projects. So, kasi may mga treaty ho, lalo yung mga loan assistance natin galing sa taga-ibang bansa. Meron dong sinasabi nila na ang gagamitin ay yung ganitong PBD, hindi yung PBD natin na sinasabi. Okay? Pero kung wala yun, walang expression or walang nakalagay doon sa executive agreement na pinirmahan ng ating mga opisyal, ang ating PBD na pinag-uusapan ang gagamitin. Okay? Kahit foreign assisted project. Okay? Kasi may mga kaya niyan, mga ADB, ang mga development partners natin, ADB, USAID, JICA. So, yun, titingnan doon sa mga loan agreements nila kung mayroon bang specific rules yun. Or else, kung wala, ayan, PBDs pa rin na dinidiscuss natin ngayon ang gagamitin. And then, ito nga, both parties have acceded through the grant agreement that RA 9184 and its 2016 IRR, including the PBDs, would be used for the project. So, dapat may mga ganitong provision. Okay. A careful study on the foreign assisted project specific requirements of the development partners must be undertaken by the procuring entities to align with their procurement guidelines as necessary. So, yan. Assignment ho ito ng mga procuring entities. Yung careful study ng foreign assisted projects specific requirements. So, nawala ho yun doon sa ating pinag-usapang PBT. Alien ho yun. So, pag-aralan nila yun, saka dapat naka-align. Ito na. The PBDs may be prepared by the procuring entity in 2 ways. So, yung isa, manual method. So, anong gagawin? Kung manual method, so by this time, siyempre alam na nila to, na nag-download na si procuring entity ng latest approved PBD. Kasi nga, October 6, dapat mandatory na yun sa kanila. And then, i-update lang nila yung kanilang mga procurement projects doon sa PBD. So, manually, i-input nila ho doon sa 6th edition na PBDs yung kanilang procurement project. Another way is the electronic method. Yung sinasabi ko ho kanina na PBD builder, na ito nga yung yung ina-advise para wala nang mali-mali. Kasi minsan sa manual, tao lang ang sasabihin, nagkakamali. Okay? So, ito yung 2 ways of preparation, of preparing the PBDs. Ang isang lang dito, sinasabi, isa is that the PIN or the private project identification number shall be based on the procuring entity's internal rules. Said identification number shall be maintained or used until a successful award or cancellation of project of the procurement project. So, isang project identification number lang ang pinagbabasihan. So, lahat to kasi ng mga procuring entity may kanya-kanyang rules for their project identification number. Okay? May iba, 2021 DAS, kung unang project 1, DAS 2, DAS 3, etc. So, kanya-kanyang internal rules yun. Pero ang sinasabi ho ng GPPB, yung kung ano yung ginamit mo sa umpisa, yun na hanggang maging successful or ma-cancel man yung award, yun ang gagamitin number na project identification number. Okay. Balik tayo, inuulit natin. The procuring entity, mas maganda na na inuulit-ulit para makabisado. The procuring entities shall indicate in the PBDs the following. Yung ABC na sinabi ko na ho kanina, approve budget for the contract. Ang relevance nito, pag nag-bid ho kayo sa gobyerno o sa bidding, eh hindi dapat sumobra or you cannot bid above or beyond the ABC. So kung ang ABC ay 100 million, kahit piso lang na above the ABC, disqualified na po yun. Okay. Number 2, information in the invitation to bid. So, dati, ito ho yung makikita nyo sa dyaryo. Pero ngayon, itong mga information na ito, makikita nyo sa website, makikita nyo yan sa PhilJeps, makikita nyo po ito sa conspicuous place ng mga procuring entity. Kasi nga, hindi na sila nagdyaryo. Kasi may sunset clause ang 2016 IRR na 2 years after its implementation, last October 2016, hindi na obligado ang gobyerno na mag-advertise. Okay? Ano pa ang ini-indicate sa PBDs? Information, number 3, information required on the bid data sheet that supplement or amend or identify the requirements included in the instruction to bidders, which are specific to the procurement project. So, yan. Yan ang dapat i-indicate nila. Number 4, scope of works or terms of reference. 5 is the technical specification and the delivery date or completion schedule. Don't forget to submit the required forms, to submit the mandatory provisions of the required forms. Kasi doon ho minsan nagkakaroon ng disqualification. Mayroong nga required form pero wala yung mandatory provisions. Kulang kumbaga. Saka yung templates ng required provision na nandito makikita natin mamaya. Required forms to be submitted by the bidder. Standard bidding forms versus the required forms. Number 2, the required forms are expressly provided in item 5.1 of the circular. Required forms to be notarized. The BSD, ang tawag dito, Bid Securing Declaration or PSD, the Performance Securing Declaration is an undertaking. The violation of each term shall be penalized with automatic disqualification from the bidding of any procurement contract of any procuring entity. So mabigat ho ito kasi pag na-disqualify ho kayo, hindi na kayo makakapag-bid 1 hanggang 2 taon sa kahit anong procuring entity o anong gobyerno kung na-blacklist na ang kayo or yung particular bidder na pinag-uusapan mo dito. Dahil nag-submit siya ng undertaking. Ano pa ang required forms? If the PE allows an online or electronic bid submission, the scanned required form shall be considered as compliant with the requirements of the bid submission. Submit, of course, subject to the submission of the original copies of the bid security or bid securing declaration, as the case may be. And the OSS ang tawag, omnibus sworn statement during the post-qualification stage. So yung mga scan copy nung unang sinabit, dapat hahanapin din po sa inyo tong original copy nito. Non-submission of this form shall be ground for disqualification. So pag hindi nyo na-submit, disqualified yung bid ninyo. Eh, mahirap yun lalo kung kayo ang lowest calculated bid tapos hindi nyo na-submit itong mga required documents na ito. Okay? For bid form, price schedules, bid securing declaration, omnibus sworn statement, joint venture agreement, or notarized statement to form joint venture for goods, PSD, and contract agreement form, the bidder dapat permado ito. Sinasabi lang ho dito sa number 6 nito, dapat permado po ito ng authorized representative. So, nung bidder or nung kanyang authorized representative. Permado, nakalagay yung pangalan niya, yung legal capacity niya. So, obligado ho yun. Hindi pwedeng walang ganito, hindi pwedeng walang pirma, walang pangalan, walang kung ano yung capacity niya doon sa contractor o doon sa supplier na yon. Mandatory provisions of the required forms. Ito naman yung pag sinabing mandatory, obligado, di ba ho? The mandatory provisions of the required forms are those provisions that are prescribed in the rules. These mandatory provisions are expressly stated in the 6.1 of the circular. Makikita ko natin yan mamaya. The procuring entity shall check compliance of the submitted forms with the mandatory provisions. So, yung taga-gobyerno, kagaya ko nung araw na hindi pa ako nagre-retire, ito yung chine-check. Kung complied ba kayo, although nag-submit kayo ng form, pero wala yung mandatory provision. So, disqualified yun. Walang kasaling mandatory provision. Okay. Templates of required forms. So, sabi ko nga, magpasalamat ang lahat na mga taga-procuring entity as well as the bidders for the work of the GPPB, particularly the TSO. Kasi pati yung mga templates na provide na nila for easy reference. Again, mada-download po ito through the link seen in the screen. At saka nakalagay ito sa 5.2 ng item 5.2 of the circular. The bidders are highly encouraged to use the templates provided to minimize errors and omissions in the form submitted. So, yun. Para wala nang hirap. Yun na lang ho ang gamitin natin. So, yun ang advice ho namin. Dati pag nag pre-bid conference, gamitin niyo na lang mga yung mga provided templates para minsan magkaka-error pa pag ni-revise. Okay? Ano ba ang mga required forms to be submitted? Ito 'yon. Pero may copy ho tayo dito. One is the form of contract, contract price, the bid security as identified. So yung bid security, pwedeng BSD, bid securing declaration, or yung binibili na may gastos. Pero karamihan, bid securing declaration na lang ang ginagamit. Yung sinasabi ko may gastos, yung galing sa insurance. May bayad yun, yung percentage. So karamihan sa mga mga suppliers, mga contractors, ang ina-avail na lang nila ay BSD. And then, the omnibus sworn statement. Required form ho ito. Now, para sa goods, may additional pa. Yung bid form, statement of ongoing contracts, price schedule, at saka yung SLCC nila, single largest completed contract. Again, ini-emphasize po dito na itong mga sinasabi nating bid form, price schedule, bid securing declaration, OSS or yung omnibus sworn statement, joint venture agreement kung mayroon ng ka-joint venture, performance securing declaration, at saka yung contract agreement form should bear the bidder or authorized representative, pangalan, legal capacity, at yung pirma niya. Okay. Pag wala nun, ground for disqualification. Ayan. Required forms to be submitted again. Inuulit. Bid for procurement of goods. All of these following templates can be downloaded sa www.gppb.gov.ph, downloadables.php. Okay. Bid form para sa goods, para sa infra, price schedule, para sa goods offered from abroad, at saka sa yun dito lang sa Pilipinas, BSD. Now, yung mga na-asterisk po dyan, yung mga naka-asterisk kagaya nito, bid securing declaration naka-asterisk, yung contract agreement form for the procurement of infra projects naka-asterisk, omnibus sworn statement naka-asterisk. Ang ibig sabihin nun, should be notarized. Okay? Pero, sinasabi pa rin ng GPPB, kung hindi nyo gagamitin yan, hindi naman ground for disqualification. Basta nasundan niyo yung format. Okay? So, bakit pa ho kayo magpapakahirap o bakit pa tayo magpapakahirap? Meron na nga form. Okay. So, ang importante, it should be notarized. Ayan na. Ito yun ang revised templates. Bid securing declaration. So, ito yung revised provision na nakalagay na dito sa form, yung nasa right po ng screen natin, yun yung form. Pero yung ini-emphasize dito, yung revised provision at saka yung revised penalties. Na this particular provision, ito, nakalagay na a document or undertaking signed by the bidder committing to pay the corresponding fine and be automatically disqualified from bidding of any procurement contract of any procuring entity for a period of time upon receipt of the blacklisting order in the event it violated the conditions stated therein. So ito yung revised provision. At saka yung revised penalties, ito nakalagay na. Penalty of disqualification. Pag na blacklisted na kayo. Pag naka-receive na kayo ng blacklisting order. So ang disqualification ay 2 years from bidding of any procurement contract with any. So lahat ng gobyerno. So hindi lang dito sa kunyari nag-bid kayo sa SSS, hindi lang tapos na meron kayong violation, tapos na-issue kayo ng blacklisting order. So hindi lang kayo blacklisted or hindi lang kayo pwedeng sumali sa SS, but sa lahat ng gobyerno. Pag sinabi natin gobyerno, lahat kasali. Government-owned and controlled corporation, lahat ng government agencies. So yun ho ang epekto nito. Okay, and then payment of fine to be calculated in accordance with the rules set. So, itong nasa right side po ng screen natin, ito po yung form na itong naka-emphasize dito na revised provision at saka revised penalties Nandito na po yun sa template. All you have to do, download it. Kung sasali po kayo, nandiyan na yung mga dapat i-accomplish na pangalan ng bidder or ng authorized representative, ano yung position niya or legal capacity niya, at saka yung pirma niya, saka notaryuhan. Sa omnibus sworn statement naman, ang mga nilagay or dinagdag, dapat ito, non-inclusion in the blacklist as revised. Itong nadagdag, yung naka-red sa screen natin. Ito ho ay under the GPPB Resolution number 16-2020. And then yung last dito, na dagdag sa revised, in case of advance payment was made or given, failure to perform or deliver any of the obligations and undertakings in the contract shall be sufficient ground to constitute criminal liability. Ito yung bago. So I think siyempre may mga supplier, may mga contractor na nakakuha ng advance payment pero hindi sila nakaka-deliver. So ito yung particular provision. Sufficient ground to constitute criminal liability. Tinanong ko na yan sa lawyer. Pwedeng estafa. Yun ang magiging kaso. So criminal yun. May kulong ang ibig sabihin nun. Now, ito na yung template. So although yung screen natin hindi masyadong maliit, pero yung na-describe natin ho kanina a while ago, incorporated na ho yun dito. Okay? So again, I advise you to please download this doon sa sinabi kong link, dppb.gov.ph. Okay? Template sa OSS or Omnibus Sworn Statement Form. Ito naman ang Revised Performance Securing Declaration Form. Dinagdagan din ho nila ng provision na ganito. Similar to the procurement, to the PSD used in the framework agreement, such declaration shall state, among others, that the winning bidder, that it will be automatically disqualified from bidding of any procurement contract of any procuring entity for a period of 1 year for the first offense or 2 years for the second offense upon receipt of the blacklisting order. Okay? Kung may violation siya, of course, sa conditions ng contract. An unauthorized PSD may be accepted. Kasi di ba kailangan notaryo? Pero dahil nga pandemic, may provision na an unauthorized PSD may be accepted subject to the submission of notarized PSD before payment. So kung nanalo na kayo o nanalo na yung supplier or yung contractor na ang sinabit niya hindi pa notaryado, pwede pa rin. Pero pag nanalo na nga siya, hindi siya makakakolekta pag hindi niya na-submit yung notarized PSD. So yun ang nun, kahalagahan nun. Dapat mag-submit siya ng notarized PSD bago siya mabayaran. Sa mga lowest calculated bidder. Okay? Ito pa, another paalala. Bid prices in figures and words. Bid price include cost of all taxes itemized in the bid form and reflected in the price schedule. So, sa procurement po ito ng goods. So, isinasama na yung itemized na mga gastos kagaya ng taxes, saka iba pa. Ito yung price schedule. The price of goods quoted X, yun sinasabi niya, X works in the Philippine peso. So kung galing sa planta, kung magkano yung presyo sa planta, cost of all sales and other taxes already paid or payable. So dito sa right side ng screen, dito ho yun ang itemized na dapat i-fill out natin or ng bidder or ng contractor. So ito yung price schedule. So sabi ko nga, sinimplify na talagang masyado. Fill out na lang natin. O fill out na lang ng mga bidders. Cost ng transportation, ng insurance, and other cost incidental to the delivery of the goods to their final destination. Siyempre, sasabihin naman sa bid docs kung ano yung final destination. Sa office ba? Or kung saan. Minsan baka sa bahay. Bahay na pinapagawa. Pero nakalagay ho yun sa bid docs yung saan yung final destination. Okay? And of course, ito yung sinabi ko na the price of other incidental services if any. Yun nakalagay yun sa price schedule. Dapat. Use of foreign currency for bid prices. For goods that will be supplied from outside the Philippines, the bid price may be quoted in local currency or tradable currency accepted by the BSP. And bids denominated in foreign currency shall be converted sa Philippine peso on the bid opening. So, kunyari nag-quote kayo ng dollar, kunyari nag-opening ng bid ni ngayon, June 23, kung magkano ang BSP price for that dollar, mo multiply doon sa ng peso. Ngayong araw na to, kung ngayon ang bidding, yun ang conversion. Okay. Bid security. Siyempre, ano ba ang purpose itong bid security? Ang bid security para doon sa mga hindi pa nagbibid, ay nire-require ng gobyerno para seryoso ang makakasali. May forfeiture kasi ito. Kasi minsan may nananalo, ay kung walang bid security, pwede lang niyang tanggihan ang bid or tanggihan yung award. So, na walang mawawala sa kanya. Pero sa mga procuring entity, malaking mawawala dahil yung time, effort doon sa preparation. At saka baka may target use na yung yung required procurement nila. So, kaya merong bid security na napo-forfeit. Ngayon, nung nakaraan, matagal na, bago mag-2016 IRR, na wala pa yung bid securing declaration, yung binabayaran pa, ang sinasabi kong mga insurance para sa BSD, napalitan na nga nito. Pati ang performance securing declaration. Now, all bids must be submitted with bid securing declaration or any form of bid security. So, pwedeng cash. Ito yung may sinasabi kong may bayad dito, cash. Pwedeng bank draft or guarantee or irrevocable LC or letter of credit. Pwedeng surety bond. So, again, pwedeng bid securing declaration lang ang isasubmit. Or kung ayaw niya ng BSD, pwedeng any of the following. Pwedeng may pera siya, cash. Pwede siyang magbayad ng surety bond. Okay? Or sa bank draft. So mayroong percentage na binabayaran po yan. Pag wala po nito, ibig sabihin nun, non-responsive ang bid nyo. So disqualified kayo. Okay? Now, doon sa naman po, dahil sa pinag-usapan natin kanina na contract agreement form, dinagdagan na ng new provision na ang nakalagay, the winning bidder agrees that additional contract documents or information prescribed by the GPPB that are subsequently required for execution or submission after the contract execution, such as notice to proceed or NTP pag tinatawag, the variation order, warranty security, shall likewise form part of the contract. Kasi nagkaroon na ng issue yan minsan. Nung walang provision na ganito, may mga tanong-tanong tungkol dyan. Eh, hindi naman nakalagay yan. Eh. So, nilagay na ngayon. So, ito na ho yun. Yung sa right side ho ng screen, yan ho ang contract agreement form. Okay? Na ito yung naka-highlight na hindi natin mababasa of course sa ngayon. But that new provision, ito nababasa sa kaliwa. Ito. Yan na yun. Na yung mga NTP, variation order, warranty security, ay form na siya ng contract. So, hindi na makakatanggi si bidder or si supplier or si contractor for that. Sa omnibus sworn statement naman, ang new provision, ito yun, nakalagay na hindi siya, or the bidder is not blacklisted by itself or by relation, membership, association, affiliation, or controlling interest with another blacklisted person or entity as defined and provided for in the Uniform Guidelines on Blacklisting. May mga ganito ho nangyari. Minsan may single proprietorship na sumali. Pero at the same time, member din pala siya or member of the board siya ng isang entity or isang korporasyon na na-blacklist. So meaning, ito yung ibig sabihin nun. Related siya doon sa ano na yun, sa contractor na blacklisted. Therefore, related na rin siya by affiliation or controlling interest. Ito yung sinasabi dito na new provision. Okay? So, yung guidelines po dito, mababasa sa Uniform Guidelines on Blacklisting. Kasi minsan, sabi niya, ay hindi naman ako blacklisted personally as a single proprietor or single proprietorship yung company. O yung ano niya, yung opisina niya. Pero yung membership niya as a board of director, blacklisted. So yun, ito yung provision na yun. Okay? In case of advance payment, isa pa, sa provisions. In case of advance payment, failure to deliver is ground for estafa or commission of fraud. So, ito nga pala yun, tinanong ko last time sa abogado. Ang magiging kaso, kung hindi ka nakadeliver, ay estafa. So, di ba, ang pinag-usapan natin palagi pag 9184, ang nakalagay sa batas, ang penalty ay for violation of 9184 or RA 9184, ang penalty ay 6,115. So, 6 years in 1 day to 15 years imprisonment ang ibig sabihin nun. So, ngayon, mayroon na pang estafa. Okay? So, dapat kaya may seminar muna ganito para maiwasan yung ganon. Maiwasan yung violations. Okay? Ito naman ho, na isa pa, na revised provision. Kanina ang pinag-usapan natin ay bid security. Ito naman, ni-require itong performance securing declaration doon sa mga nanalo na supplier contractor. Performance securing declaration. Again, itong PSD, wala rin itong bayad. So, undertaking lang ito. Pero dinagdagan ho ito ng provision na automatic disqualification from bidding of any procurement contract for violations under the contract. So, nakalagay din sa unang offense nyo, 1-year blacklisting, and second offense, 2-year blacklisting. So again, in blacklisting nito is effective para sa lahat ng procuring entity. So, hindi lang doon sa kung saan kayo nag-bid. So, sa lahat ng taga-gobyerno. Okay? Yun ang revised provision. Other required forms. Statement of the bidder of all its ongoing government and private contracts. SLCC. SLCC yung single largest completed contract na dapat nakalagay ang completed contract with contract date, period, and amount. Dito ho, i-share ko lang sa inyo na dito sa statement of the bidder of its ongoing government and private contract, yung iba, hindi ho nilalagay lahat. Para, lalo kung may requirement na net financial contracting capacity, yung NFCC, kasi, ano yun, pwedeng silang nakakadaya sa NFCC, meaning lalaki ang NFCC nila pag hindi binawas yung mga ongoing contract nila. Kasi ang formula ng NFCC ay current assets minus current liabilities times K, may times 15 minus yung mga ongoing contracts nila. So kung walang ongoing contracts, lalaki ang NFCC, net financial contracting capacity nila. Yun ang ano nun. So malalaman pa rin ho yun ng procuring entity. So ngayon pa lang, huwag nyo na hong gagawin yun. Dapat isulat ng bidder or kung kayo man ho yun, isulat nyo po ang inyong ongoing contracts, whether government or private. So importante yun sa computation ng NFCC. Sa goods, yung iba, hindi na sagsasabit ng NFCC, ang sinasabit nilang nila ay CLC, Committed Line of Credit. Para hindi na sila hanapan ng NFCC. Pero sa infra, obligadong NFCC pa rin. Net Financial Contracting Capacity ang ibig sabihin natin. Again, ang formula nun ay net yung current assets na nakikita doon sa financial statement na naaprubahan ng BIR. Current assets minus current liabilities times 15 minus yun nga, yung ongoing contract or yung contract na awarded na pero hindi pa na-umpisahan. So yun ang formula ng NFCC. So again, ang NFCC pwedeng palitan ng CLC, which is Committed Line of Credit. At least 10% lang ng ABC. So kung 100 million or kung 10 million ang project, 1 million lang ang required CLC. Para sa goods lang po yun. Pero para sa infra again, walang ganon. And FCC pa rin ang nire-require. Other required forms. Ito naman yung mga notarized statements to forming JB. May mga parties so kasi na parties to enter and abide by the provisions of the JB, Joint Venture Agreement in the event that the bid is successful, and failure to enter into JVA or Joint Venture Agreement in the event of a contract award shall be ground for bid disqualification and subsequent forfeiture of bid security. So yung bakit ba may joint venture? Yung iba ho kasi malaki ang capitalization. So mataas ang financial requirement nila pero wala naman silang single largest contract. So makikipag-joint venture sila sa may projects na para sa technical. So yung dalawa, nag-agree na magpo-form sila ng joint venture partnership, joint venture agreement. So kung wala pa silang joint venture bago mag-bid, pero meron silang parang pangako. Ito yun nga, joint venture agreement na dapat, pag nanalo na sila, dapat mag-enter into joint venture agreement contract na silang dalawa or more than 2. Na pag hindi nila ginawa yon, ground 4, masasayang yung bid nila. Madi-disqualify po sila. Ito naman, yung required form, certification as to reciprocity to foreign bidders for goods. So, this is a certification from relevant government office of their country stating that Filipinos are allowed to participate in government procurement activities in for the same item. So, for example, kung sa Japan ay allowed din ang Pilipino na mag-bid doon, kumuha sila ng certification na gano'n. So that foreign bidder can also be allowed. So, reciprocal. So, bumabawi lang tayo. Certification from the relevant government office of their country. Ayan. So, sa embassy yun. So, kung sinasabi ko kanina ng Japan, so just sa Japanese embassy, na magsasabi na ang mga Pilipino ay pwede ding sumali sa bidding ng, let's say, computer. Let's say, ano pa ba? Pwedeng mag-bid ang whatever product na pwedeng mag-bid ang Pinoy doon sa kanila, ang Pilipino. Okay? So, yun ang certification ng reciprocity. Okay? Now, itong grounds for disqualification, sabi ko nga, sinimplify na ng GPPB yung mga PBDs na ito para maiwasan, of course, yung disqualification. Kasi ang gusto ng mangyari ng gobyerno, particularly ng Government Procuring Policy Board, ay successful ang bidding. Kasi pag successful po ang bidding, meaning walang na-disqualify, pasado lahat, hanggang sa post-qualification, makakatipid ang gobyerno kasi hindi na uulit-ulit. Every time na uulit or magre-rebid, mayroon namang manpower loss or yung time na na-consume na naman na dapat napakinabangan na. So, ito yung grounds for disqualification na dapat nating tandaan. Isa-isip. Non-submission of the required forms is equal to disqualification. Siyempre, mayroong subject to the requirements for scanned copies in online electronic bid submission. Okay. Non-inclusion of mandatory provision, disqualification pa rin. Nakasubmit na ho kayo ng required form pero yung mandatory provision na pinag-usapan natin a while ago, hindi na isama, or na-delete ba o na-erase, disqualified pa rin yun. And then another one, for forms to be notarized, absence or finding against the truthfulness of the notarization equals disqualification. Of course, unless allowed to be submitted at the later date. Siyempre, kagaya ho ngayon, state of calamity. In effect pa rin ho ito. Pero doon sa truthfulness ng notarization, mayroon lang ho akong i-share na during the post-qualification, ito ho ay nangyari sa previous office ko. Tininan ng kasamahan namin, yung TWG, o pinuntahan ang nakalagay na notaryo publiko or notary public. Non-existent yung notary public. Nung pinuntahan sa office, nakalagay doon, wala namang office. Tinanong, wala namang office yung si ganitong notaryo publiko. Baka yun ho ay pinanotaryo lang dyan sa mga tabi-tabi. Kasi may makikita ho kayo na may nagnonotaryo dyan sa tabi-tabi. So be careful with that. Kasi baka masipag yung yung TWG. So ito yun. Ito yung sinasabi nito na finding against the truthfulness of the notarization. So dapat magpanotaryo kayo doon sa tamang abogado na notaryo publiko or notary public na allowed ng Supreme Court. Okay? Ngayon, yung sinasabi ko kanina na dahil mayroong calamity ngayon, state of calamity, yung pagsasubmit, pwedeng hindi doon sa bidding itself. Pero kung nanalo, ipapasubmit yon after nanalo kayo, pero bago magbayad, before payment. Okay? So ito ho yung significance nitong notaryo na ito. Tsaka yung sinasabi kong pagpapanotaryo doon sa mga talagang notaryo publiko lang. So, di ba alam na natin na ang dapat i-present ng nagpapanotaryo ay ang valid ID, valid government issued ID. Hindi na yung dati-dati cedula. So valid government issued ID. Online PBD builder. Ito yung recommended ng GPPB para sa lahat ng mga procuring entities. So, pero hindi pa naman lahat. Pero sabi ko nga, later on, pag na-realize nila to na ng mga procuring entity na dapat mag-online PBD builder na sila, ayan, siguro nagagamit na rin ho sila nito. Ito kasi it enable electronic method of preparing the PBDs to minimize errors and facilitate the effective conduct of public procurement. The preparation ng PBDs and submission and receipt of bids of goods in infra projects until completion of the modernized PGFs. So mangyayari na rin ho yan later on sa lahat. Sa lahat. Although marami nang gumagamit. So with that, I think that ends my presentation. Time check 10. Sir Mark?
All right, thank you so much, Engineer Val, for facilitating a very informative and comprehensive discussion on the salient provisions of the simplified 6th edition Philippine bidding documents for goods and infrastructure projects. At this point, we will take a 5-minute short break, and after the break, our research speaker will join us again for the open forum. So with that, if you still have questions on the topic presented by Engineer Val, please do drop them at the Zoom chat box. Of course, our viewers in Facebook Live may also drop their questions using the comment sections. With that, thank you and stay with us.
Yan ang ulam natin.
Adobong manok!
Mabango, masarap. Subo na. Simulan sa sarsa.
Malasa!
Pasok ang lasa. Pero may isang hindi pasok. Matigas ang manok. Bakit kaya? Dahil pangit ang quality ng manok, minadali pa ang pagluluto. Ay, sayang ang pera. Dapat mitikuloso. Tama?
Tama!
Ganyan din sa gobyerno natin. Gusto natin ng masarap na adobo. Matinong proseso na mula sa maayos na pagpaplano. Ang pagbili ng gamit ng gobyerno ay dapat nakaayon sa proseso upang matiyak ang pagbili ay sulit. Huwag munang magkamot ng ulo. Madali lang ang procurement. Hindi ito komplikado. Kailangan lang ng masusing pagpaplano at pagsunod sa proseso na itinakda ng Republic Act 9184. Ang RA 9184, mas kilala bilang Government Procurement Reform Act o GPRA, ay ang batas na nagtakda ng tamang proseso sa pagbili ng mga pangangailangan ng gobyerno, kagaya ng supplies, mga equipment, at general support services. Bahagi ng proseso ng pagbili ay ang procurement planning. Dito, nagpa-prioritize ng projects ang mga ahensya para makamit ang kanilang goals sang-ayon sa long-term plan ng buong gobyerno. Kasama rito ang pagtukoy sa tamang specifications at budget para sa procurement project. Lahat ng napagdesisyonan procurement projects ng isang ahensya ay ililista sa kanilang Annual Procurement Plan o APP kada taon. Anumang hindi nakalista sa APP ay hindi maaaring bilhin ng ahensya.
Bakit?
Para masiguro ang matalino at wastong paggamit ng pondo.
O, tapos?
Para makasiguro na kumpleto at wastong lahat ng dokumento, ang ahensya ay magkakandak ng pre-procurement conference bago simulan ang pagbili. Mahalaga na malinaw ang pagkakasaad ng specifications and requirements sa bidding documents. Sunod dito ang paglalathala ng invitation to bid para hikayatin ang mga potential bidders na sumali sa procurement. Bago ang takdang araw ng pagsumite ng bids, magkakaroon ng pre-bid conference kung saan pag-uusapan kasama ang mga interesadong bidders ang lahat ng detalye tungkol sa proyekto. Ang mga interesadong bidders ay dapat paalalahanan sa deadline ng submission of bids. Hindi kasi pwedeng tumanggap ng bid lagpas sa itinakdang petsa at oras. Tandaan na ang bid ay dapat na selyado at naglalaman ng dalawang hiwalay at selyadong envelopes kung saan nakapaloob ang mga required technical at financial documents. Ang technical envelope ay naglalaman ng mga dokumento na magpapatunay na eligible ang bidder na sumali sa procurement at ng kanyang technical na kakayanang i-deliver ang goods. Ang financial envelope naman ay naglalaman ng presyo na iniaalok ng bidder para sa proyekto. Isa-isang idadaan ng BAC sa simpleng pass or fail preliminary examination ang mga natanggap na bids para matukoy kung kumpleto ang mga dokumento at kung naaayon ito sa pamantayan. Unang bubuksan ang technical envelope ng lahat ng bidders. Kapag kulang o mali ang dokumentong nasa technical envelope ng bidder, hindi na bubuksan ang kanyang financial envelope. Ibig sabihin, tanggal na siya sa bidding. Kapag na-scrutinize na ang lahat ng technical envelopes, saka palang bubuksan ang financial envelopes ng mga nakapasang bidders. Laging tatandaan na hindi dapat mas mataas sa ABC ang presyo na iniaalok ng bidder. Anumang bid ang mas mataas sa ABC ay matatanggal rin.
Bakit?
Dahil ang ABC ang limitasyon ng presyo ng proyekto. Para masiguro ng gobyerno na hindi ito gagastos ng higit pa sa naibudget para sa taon. Sabi nga nila, spend within your means. Bubusisiin naman sa bid evaluation ang mga nakapasang bids upang, una, masigurong kumpleto at naaayon sa pamantayan ang mga impormasyon. At ikalawa, masigurong hindi labis sa ABC ang presyong ini-offer ng bidder. Pagkatapos nito, ay irarank ang mga nakapasang bids mula sa pinakamababang presyo. Ang pinakamababang bid ang tataguriang lowest calculated bid o LCB na isasalang sa post-qualification.
Post-qualification?
Ito ang proseso kung saan sinusuri ng BAC o ng Technical Working Group ang mga dokumento at impormasyong isinumite para matiyak na lahat ay tama at nasa ayos. Sinusuri rin ang mga nakaraang kontrata, pasilidad, produkto at pati pinansyal na katayuan ng LCB para masigurong kaya nitong i-deliver ang goods.
Bakit?
Dahil sa ganitong paraan, masisiguro ng BAC na ang mananalong bidder ay hindi lamang basta mababa ang presyo, kundi ito ay technically qualified. Kapag napatunayan sa pagsusuri na ang LCB ay nakapasa sa legal, technical, at financial requirements, ito ay tatawaging bidder na may lowest calculated responsive bid o LCRB na irerekomenda na gawaran ng kontrata. Ayan, ang proseso ng procurement sa gobyerno ay kasing dali lang ng pagluluto ng adobo. Kapag naplano at nahanap ang tamang sangkap, malamang walang palpak. Sa ganyang paraan, walang nasasayang. Tiyak na best quality at the best price ay swak na swak. Approve?
All right, let's resume. So during the break, we have shown you the EVP on the standard bidding procedures on goods and infrastructure projects, which will be further discussed during tomorrow's session. To see more infomercials on government procurement, please visit the official website of the GPPBTSO at www.gppb.gov.ph. At this point, we will be having the open forum. In the interest of time, we will only read the questions related to the salient provisions and use of the simplified PBDs. But rest assured that we have documented your questions and they will be properly addressed tomorrow and on Friday. So with that, let's read first. Let's welcome back again our resource speaker, Engineer Bal. And with that, let's read the first question from our Zoom participants. All right, so for the first question, what can we do when a procuring agency purposely prevents you from joining a bidding? So with that, Engineer Bal, are you here with us?
Purposely denied or
prevents from joining a bidding.
So number one is, what can we do when a procurement agency prevents you from joining? You should inquire what is the reason for preventing you. So ano bang reason? So dapat we have to know the reason. Hindi pwedeng lang ayaw kong pasalihin, hindi kita kampi. So we have to know. Ano yun? Pag nalaman mo natin ang reason, meron tayong ground for, sabi ko nga, violation of RA 9184 is tantamount to penalty na ranges from, yun nga, 6115. So, I suggest, if I were the bidder, that particular bidder, tatanungin ko po ang reason nila ba't ayaw nila akong pasalihin. Yun po muna. And then after that, dun sa reason nila, malalaman natin what would be the next thing to do. Yun ho.
So, all right, thank you so much.
Yeah,
go ahead, sir.
Baka naisip lang nila. Sabi ko nga, baka hindi ka lang type. Mayroon na silang kumbaga, may tawag sa parlance na mayroon na silang mga bidder na lagi lang sinasalit kasi ikaw hindi ka kasali doon sa ano nila. Ayoko tawaging ang term doon is kasali sa kanilang ang term doon na is usapan. So dapat we have to know what's the purpose of the procuring agency or procuring entity for preventing you from joining their bid. Kasi nga ang bidding ay dapat maraming makasali. Open to everybody na qualified. So yun ho. So yun ang my take on that.
All right, thank you so much, Engineer Val. So moving on to the second question. What if the procuring entity refuses to comply with the standards of Section 17 and 23? Will the bidding be invalid?
Refuses to comply. So ang procuring entity dito may problema. So, refuses to comply. Ang ibig sabihin ho ba nito doon pa lang sa umpisa. May I know what's the essence nitong question? Bakit nag-refuse to comply? Kasi itong Section 17 bidding rules ito na dapat i-comply. Now, refuses to comply. I think doon pa lang sa internal sa hope pa lang ang issue nito. Hindi pwede pag ginawa kung sino man ang gumawa nitong hindi kino-comply ang standard Section 17 and 23, it could result to invalid bidding. Pag ako yung hope, tas nalaman ko na yung back, for example lang po ito, yung back ay nag-refuse na i-comply ang standards sa Section 17 and 23, then being the hope, I will declare this bid invalid. Ang take ko diyan. Refuse to comply. Again, what's the reason for the refusal of the procuring entity to comply? Kasi aside from kasalanan yon, meron pa silang AOM sa COA. Audit Observation Memorandum yon. Kasi nga dapat kino-comply po ang batas. Okay, so it could be, yun nga sabi ko, could result to invalidation of the bidding. Pero doon pa lang sa refusing na yun, refusal, may problema si procuring entity po doon. I-report nyo po yun sa GPPB kung sino ho yun sa ngayon para ma-call out ang attention sa ngayon pa lang. Aside from, of course, yung sabi ko, COA. This would be a COA issue. Okay?
Sir, good
Yun po.
morning. Can I expound?
Sige ma'am, please.
Okay, ako po nag-raise ng question. Magandang umaga.
Magandang umaga din po.
Yung procuring entity kasi, di ba nakalagay naman that the procuring entity should strictly adhere to section 17 and 18 kung ano lang yung nakalagay na eligibility requirements.
Yes ma'am.
So they kept on adding other eligibility requirements that are not stated in section 17 and 23. And even dun po sa clarification namin na isinite namin yan na they are not allowed. So they are invoking na the procuring entity daw can add additional parang requirements they deemed necessary. So yun yung ini-invoke nila palagi. So ang tendency, nalilimit yung magpa-participate na qualified bidders, nalilimit dun sa preferred bidder nila kung magdadagdag sila ng other eligibility requirements that only their preferred supplier can comply. So paano po ito? Saan po sa GPPB magrereklamo? Kasi nagsusulat kami sa kanila sa TSO lang po eh. Tsaka hindi daw po covered ng GPPB ito.
Muna, TSO. Sir Maki, sige, bilang taga GPPB, nagreklamo na po kayo sa TSO. I think sa COA, ma'am.
Si COA po hindi sumasagot. Ikinomplain na rin po namin ito. So, is there any other avenues? Kasi it's been years tapos wala pong response from COA.
If I were you, sa ombudsman, sa ombudsman na to. Kasi kung, yun nga, may provision naman na bawal. Pero they keep on stating na yun nga, baka may favorable na sila doon na nagko-comply. Pag hindi nila nilagay yun, maraming makakasali, di ba? Parang ganon.
Yes, sir.
So, ang tanong nyo is, sino ang pwedeng anong entity or anong government entity ang sa kayo pwedeng magreklamo or sumbong?
Yes, sir. Tsaka sir, paano kaya ito? Di magtutuloy-tuloy yung procurement. So eventually, this will be awarded to suppliers. Pag na-award, yung opportunity po, nawalan na po kami ng opportunity to participate in the bidding.
Now, I think...
Stop?
I think... ano ho ba ang sagot, ma'am, sa inyo initially nung ma'am? If I may ask. Sumulat na kayo sa GPPB regarding the matter?
Yes, sir. Sumulat na po kami. Tapos,
anong reply nila po?
Hindi daw po nila covered yung violations ng procuring entity sa mga ganito. So daw, wala sila ding in-identify na other avenues to seek redress.
So I think the other option would be yun nga, DPPB na umpisa, COA would be the next, and then finally ombudsman, kasi government ang kino-complain natin. So COA, ma'am, siguro siguro sa head na COA or
Sir, in-endorse din kami sa regional na COA. Tapos yung regional na COA, wala pong action.
Sige. Isama namin ho yan sa pag-uusapan, and then parang may similar case na ganyan na nag-complain na sa ombudsman dahil baka may favoritism na yan. Kasi under the law, hindi ka basta-basta sa court, di ba? Unless
Yes.
na-exhaust mo yung administrative remedies, yung may mga filing of motion hanggang maubos na yon, hanggang pwede na kayo mag-protest. After protest, tsaka ka palang pupunta sa court. So I think COA muna, kasi nga specific issue to. Pero pwede bang mag-recommend ako ng another written request to the GPPB. Now, another one is, ano ho ba itong, may I know kung pwede nyong banggitin, government financial institution, GOCC, national government, etc. Ay yung iba kasi sa ganito hindi to dapat magtuloy-tuloy kung bawal, 'di ba?
Sir, mostly Department of Agriculture and yung mga regional offices ng Department of Agriculture. Tapos hindi ko po alam kasi kung anong agency
Ma'am,
yung
na-report niyo na rin ba ho sa head office nila?
Yes, sir. Wala pa rin pong action. It's been parang more than 5 years. Ilang administration na rin po eh. Hindi po, wala pong response.
Ay, sige. Can I siguro request you to please siguro PM or kasi meron naman ho kaming mga kasamahan na taga DA. Baka hindi pa alam ng mga bossing. I don't know. I don't know. Kaya kung okay lang ho sa inyo na through email siguro, I can provide you my email and then
Thank you. Yes, sir.
i-take up natin. Siguro, sabi ko hindi na ako taga-gobyerno ngayon, pwede na tayong magbatikos sa hindi tamang ginagawa ng gobyerno. Kung ganon. Ma'am, sino po sila, ma'am? Miss Candy?
Candy lang, sir.
Yeah, Candy. I can give you my email ad. And then, please, baka subukan ko lang ho makatulong sa ganyan. Kasi hindi pwedeng, sabi nyo nga, hindi pwedeng tuloy-tuloy yung ganyan. They refuse to comply. Ito pa lang, refusal to comply. Meron na, yun. To me, personally. So, sige po ma'am. I am requesting you nga na pwedeng padalhan ako ng yung parang yung letter niyo siguro mismo.
Yes, sir.
Kasi, yeah. My Sir Maki, can I give the
Yes, sir. We'll arrange that, sir, later after the event. So with that, sorry to cut you, sir, but to Miss Candy po, we will note your concern on that, and you may also again send siguro po another request for opinion to GPPB TSO, to the Technical Support Office. You can send us a request for opinion, and our Legal and Research Division will coordinate with you. But again po, just a disclaimer po, the GPPB po kasi has no quasi-judicial function, so we can't really decide on disputes or issues on government procurement. We can only provide po legal opinions on that. You may also po schedule an online consultation with our Legal and Research Division. Details of that po, we will send that directly to you after the event. So with that, let us now move on to the third question.
Thank you. That's the best.
All right, for the next question, most bid openings are done in the mornings when the BSP exchange rate is not yet available. Can we use the rate of the previous day?
So dito, hindi ko to masasagot. We would like to ask opinion again from the GPPB. So, yeah, can we use ang sinasabi sa batas on the opening day? So, opening day rate should prevail. So can we use the rate of the previous day? Now, yeah, I have to defer and ask the GPPB on the GPPB and of course the BSP. So ano ba ang pagkaibahan ng rate in the morning? Hindi pa available yung rate. Eh di kung sa tingin ko kung ano yung available at that time. At the time of the opening, ang pinag-uusapan po natin eh. So, pero nga yung, yeah, maganda ho itong tanong niyo ma'am. So, I think the GPPB would help us on this particular question. Done in the morning, exchange rate is not yet available. Can we use the rate of the previous day? Sige. In our case, wala pa akong experience of this particular question. So, go ahead, Mr.
All right, sir.
Mikey. Yeah.
We'll take note of that, sir, so we can provide po the most appropriate answer for that question. Now, moving on po. But thank you po, sir, for answering that question. Now, moving on to the next question. What is the ground for the procuring entity for not performing the payment terms of the contract?
What is the ground for the procuring entity of not performing to the payment of terms of contract? Actually, kung ang lahat ng terms and conditions under the contract ay complied with, obligated po ang procuring entity to pay. So, yun lang ho. Kung mayroong, or one of the 10 kunyari, may isa doon na not complied or not yet complied. So, yun ang mga ground lang. Pero kung lahat ay complied, dapat magbayad ho ang procuring entity. So, what is the ground? Yeah, yun lang ho ang masasabi ko rito. Kung mayroon hindi na comply si contractor doon sa terms and conditions of the contract, yun lang pwedeng ground ni procuring entity na hindi magbayad. Ito ho ba yun? May I ask to further siguro i-expound, ma'am?
Yes, hello po sir, good morning.
Good morning ma'am, please.
This is
Expound.
from Green Valley Machineries po, Coronadal City. Meron po kasi kaming experience sa LGU na the project was started 2019 and still now hindi pa po nakakapagbayad nung payment nila for the project.
May I ask ma'am if complied na po kayo doon sa requirements nila?
Yes po sir, documents from delivery to acceptance and inspection meron na po.
So number one, if I were you, sila mismo ang tanongin natin. Ano ho ang ground ninyo, ba't hindi po ba kami nababayaran? Kasi may mga LGU na wala na silang pondo or na-divert na yung pondo for that. But they are obligated to, of course, magkaroon kasi sila ng supplemental and yan. Kasi nga, di ba sa procurement, dapat hindi pwede mag-invite ang mga taga-gobyerno pag walang pondo, di ba? Now, yan ma'am, number one, may I suggest, si procuring entity mismo ang tanungin nyo bakit hindi sila nakakapagbayad. Dahil doon sa sagot nila, doon natin malalaman ang next move. I think yun ang the best that I could advise to you. Kasi kung dinidelay lang nila, kasi minsan may mga procuring entity kasi yung pondo ay galing sa ibang agency na hindi pa nada-download sa kanila. May mga ganun eh. So they have to state that on the reason kung susulatan niyo po sila. Yun muna.
Yes po sir, thank you. Actually, we have nag-contact na po kami sa kanila and yung feedback is already may budget na po previous kasi hindi naman pwedeng mag-open ng project pag walang
That's
budget.
right.
And sabi po is nagamit and then yung ngayon po
Yeah.
hindi pa daw na-download ulit.
Yes. So yun, palagay ko yung reason na, yun nga, you have to bear that with the government or the procuring entity in that case Kasi nga, although kunyari ako yung paying master doon or ako si treasury or si accountant or si accounting, hindi ko nga kayo mababayaran kasi wala pa yung pondo na download sa akin. So, it's either, siyempre, merong mga, yan, AOM, COA yun. Pangalawa, babagsak sila doon pag inaudit sila ng ECPC, ECPC ay ng GPPB. So, mayroon na rin pala silang sagot na wala pala sa pondo. So, suggestion ko pagtyagaan niyo na lang muna. So, babayaran nila 'yon, hindi pwede. Pagdating ng pondo po nila.
Yes, sige po, sir. Thank you po.
All right, thank you so much, Sir Val and Ms. Sheila, for further elaborating your question. Now, moving on for the next question. So, this is a series of questions, sir. So, when the sole proprietorship business had grown through the years, the organizational structure had expanded. The manpower requirement had increased its demand. The named owner is aging. The sole proprietorship type of business might unlikely be relevant. So the question is whether the experience or track record of a sole proprietorship, which has put all its assets, personnel, and resources to a newly registered corporation, may be carried over to said corporation.
Hindi po. Pag sinasabi natin experience, iba yung experience ng sole proprietorship lang na it cannot be carried over. Pero as far as the experience ng personal, kunyari personal, pwede. Pero pag ang pinag-usapan natin, dalawang entity na ito, sole proprietorship and a corporation. So hindi ho pwedeng i-carry over ng nasabing kumpanya yung previous experience niya as a sole proprietor.
All right, thank you so much, Engineer Val. Now moving on to the, I think, last question. Can only one joint venture partner have the necessary documents such as PhilJEP's certification, tax clearance if the JV partner is not participating in government biddings?
Nakalagay dapat dalawa silang mayroong PhilJEP certification. Dapat meron parehas. Hindi pwedeng isa lang. Eligibility requirements, dapat meron sila parehas. Yun ang sagot.
All right, thank you so much, Engineer Val. So I think that's the last question for the topic. There's another question. So the question is, okay, additional question po, sir. If other documents such as contract for agreement is not notarized and unfilled data in contract of agreement is subject for failed bidders, can we ask the bidders to add certificate of completion or certificate of acceptance on the part of the previous procuring entity they contracted?
Ang nagtatanong nito is yung procuring entity. So, if the other documents as contract is not notarized.
Yes, sir. I think the question po is coming from a government agency po from Facebook Live.
Okay. Yeah, I think so. Pwede ho. Para yun, kasama yun sa validation Validation during the post-coito. Yeah, we can ask the bidder to add certificate of completion. Pero dapat, kasi baka additional requirement ito. Hindi pwede pag additional requirement. Pag ang tanong lang is, can we ask the bidder to add certificate of completion or certificate of previous acceptance? Dapat ilagay nila kaagad dito, kumbaga, prior to bidding na in lieu. Pero dapat, obligado sa susunod yung mga projects po, if you're the procuring entity, malilito lang ho kayo pag nilagyan nyo pa ng mga options yung ating mga bidders. So, pag sinabing dapat may notarized contract, pag hindi notarized contract, disqualified na agad. Yun ho ang ano. Can we ask the bidder to add certificate of identification? Hindi na pwede yun pag post pa na.
All right, sir. Thank you, sir, for answering the additional question. So for other questions posted in our Zoom chat box, this will be addressed tomorrow, since our topic tomorrow will be the standard bidding procedures for goods and infrastructure projects. So please rest assured po that we'll be addressing your questions tomorrow until Friday. And with that, that concludes the open forum for the first topic for this online training program. With that, we would like to thank our first resource speaker, Engineer Bal Kahilig, for leading a very informative and comprehensive discussion on the salient provisions of the 6th edition Simplified Philippine Bidding Documents for Goods and Infrastructure Projects. So with that, thank you so much po, Sir Bal, for graciously accepting our invitation to be part of this online training program.
It's my pleasure, and thank you, Sir Maki, and to all the participants. Marami pong salamat. Sana naka-inform po ako.
Definitely, sir.
Yeah.
Maraming salamat po.
Maraming salamat din po.
At this point, we will take a 10-minute health break. So if you want to grab some snacks or drinks or go to the comfort room, you may do so now. Please use this time as well to accomplish the online survey entitled Simplifying, Streamlining, and Strengthening Public Procurement by visiting the link bit.ly, that's bit.ly/simplify public procurement. We'll also send the link in this chat box. So there you have it, the link or the QR code that will lead you to the online survey entitled Simplifying, Streamlining, and Strengthening Public Procurement. Your feedback to this online survey would greatly help us to further improve our policy issuances on government procurement, specifically to further improve and simplify the existing Philippine bidding document. So with that, thank you and stay with us. All right, let's resume. So once again po, please don't forget to accomplish the survey form on the simplified Philippine bidding documents as sent. The link was sent to the Zoom chat box earlier. So with that, moving on to the program, let us now dive to the second topic for today's session. And to give us a brief overview of the online blacklisting portal of the GPPB Technical Support Office, please welcome the Procurement Management Officer for under the Performance Monitoring Division of the GPPB TSO to discuss the overview of the online blacklisting portal. Please welcome Ms. Ivy Stephanie Caluza.
The Government Procurement Policy Board Online Blacklisting Portal, or GPPBOBP, is an electronic platform which allows procuring entities or PEs to post-issue blacklisting orders or BOs, update the status of its blacklisted entities when necessary, and access its blacklisting-related information. This innovation is developed by the GPPB Technical Support Office or TSO through its Information Management Division in line with the transition to digitizing government transactions and to ensure the timely, complete, and accurate information on blacklisted entities reflected in the Consolidated Blacklisting Report or CBR. In 2017, the Uniform Guidelines for Blacklisting has been revised through GPPB Resolution Number 40-2017. During its implementation, several issues and concerns were encountered, particularly on the submission and posting of blacklisting orders. These issues include number 1, the timeliness of posting of POs. PEs were required to submit its BOs to GPPB-TSO for posting in the CBR. The period of transmittal, receipt, and review contributes to the delay of information to other PEs, which is detrimental to its conduct of bid evaluation and post-qualification to determine the bidder's eligibility to participate in its procurement activities. Another is the completeness of the information related to BOs. The absence of the start and end date of the period of blacklisting may result to award of contract to a blacklisted entity. Also, GPPB Resolution Number 12-2012 requires that the blacklisted entity be denied the registration or cancel its account on the Philippine Government Electronic Procurement System or PhilGEPS. Considering the manual submission and posting, this requirement was not implemented. Thus, on June 25, 2020, GPPB Resolution Number 14-2020 was approved to implement the GPPB OBP to prescribe the form for BO, to amend Section 10 of GPPB Resolution Number 40-2017, and to issue the GPPB Circular Number 03-2020, which guides all users on the use of OBP. The Hope, through the recommendation of the BAC, designates the official and alternate users who are responsible for the posting of BOs through the OBP and updating of the status of the same if needed. And of course, as users, they are responsible for maintaining the PE's information in its OBP account. Any posting and status changes made in the OBP by the official or alternate user are automatically reflected in the CBR. For the posting of BO, may we emphasize that a BO represents finality of the decision of the PE to blacklist an erring bidder or contractor. This means that due process in accordance with the blacklisting and contract termination guidelines was accorded the blacklisted entity. Once the blacklisting order is issued, it has to be posted in the CBR through the OBP within 3 calendar days from the date of its effectivity. The official or alternate user shall encode the content of the BO in the OBP and proceed with the uploading of the copy of the said BO. Upon posting, the name of the blacklisted entity shall automatically be included in the CBR. In addition, a notification email shall also be automatically sent to the PhilGEPS, GPPB-TSO, and the BAC chairperson or chairpersons of the PE. What are the specific instances when the official or alternate user have to update the status of a blacklisted entity? The general rule is that we cannot remove a posted PO in the CBR unless the period of penalty has lapsed. This removal upon lapse of period of suspension is called delisting. The system actually automatically removes the name of the blacklisted entity in the CBR after it served the period of penalty. The name of the blacklisted entity will no longer appear in the CBR but will still show in the OBP account of the PE under the list of blacklisted entities. Rest assured that only the PE will be able to see and access this list. Aside from ensuring the consistency of the records in the PE's OBP account with that of the CBR, this action will notify PhilGEPS, GPPB-TSO, and the BAC chairperson or chairpersons of the PE. For GPPB-TSO, the notification is important in our monitoring of the OBP, while for the PhilGEPS, this will prompt the system to allow the registration or activation of the entity which period of blacklisting has lapsed. In the case of the BAC chairperson, so that he or she is aware of the activities undertaken by OBP users as part of the internal control of their OBP account. The second instance when the official or alternate user may update the status of its blacklisted entity is when the PE receives a lawful order from a judicial or quasi-judicial body directing the PE for the temporary or permanent lifting of the period of suspension or removing the name of a blacklisted entity from the CBR. The PE is bound to comply with such order by immediately implementing the same in the OBP. Lastly, user shall update the status of its blacklisted entity when its name has to be reposted in the CBR. If the lawful order temporarily lifting the period of suspension or removing the name of the blacklisted entity from the CBR has lapsed and no further extension was received by the PE, the name of the blacklisted entity must be reposted or included again in the CBR. Please note that there is no automatic reposting upon lapse of temporary lifting of period of suspension. Thus, the PE must update the status of the blacklisted entity. Kindly note as well that upon reposting, the period of penalty is adjusted by the PE by adding the number of days the suspension of the blacklisted entity was temporarily lifted or its name was removed from the CBR to fully serve the 1 year or 2 years penalty as the case may be. Accordingly, the adjusted end date shall be reflected in the CBR. Let us take this example. The initial end date of the period of penalty is on January 31, 2021. However, the blacklisted entity was temporarily removed for 10 days. So upon reposting, the new end date would be February 10, 2021 in order for the blacklisted entity to fully serve its period of penalty. Upon the effectivity of GPPB Resolution 14-2020 and Circular 03-2020 on August 7, 2020, the GPPB and its TSO no longer accept submission of BOs from PEs. BOs issued and received prior to the effectivity of the said issuances were migrated in the OPP and posted in the CBR. As such, concerned PEs with currently posted BOs done by the GPPB TSO must register in the OBP so they can update the status of the blacklisted entity, specifically to the list upon the lapse of the period of penalty. Aside from the CBR, the following features are also available for public access. User's Guide and Terms and Conditions, which will be the reference of the PE in using the OBP. The Blacklisting Order Form, which is downloadable and editable. This is the required form for the issuance of blacklisting orders, which was amended through GPPB Resolution 14-2020 as well. Finally, the list of blacklisting related issuances. As a reference and guide to all interested parties, we consolidated all issuances that relate to blacklisting so any person or entity who wants to check on those may be able to access the same in one place. To summarize, the OBP is an online system that allows PEs to post and update status of blacklisted entities in the CBR. It also has an automatic notification feature to the PhilJets, so suppliers are readily removed from its registry for the duration of penalty. As the OBP ensures the timely, accurate, and complete blacklisting details in the CBR, it can be a relevant source of information for all interested parties.
All right, thank you so much, Miss Ivy, for giving us a comprehensive overview of the online blacklisting portal of the GPPB TSO. With that, we will go straight to the open forum for the topic on online blacklisting portal. And joining us this morning to answer your questions is the Procurement Management Officer 5 and Officer in Charge of the Performance Monitoring Division of the GPPB TSO, Miss Carla Portugal. So with that, welcome, Miss Carla. And here are the questions on the online blacklisting portal. So for the first question, if a supplier refuses to accept the award, could this be a ground for blacklisting? Supplier alleged that the product is no longer available in the market or phased out already. What should be our legal remedy in this situation?
Thank you, Maki, and good morning po sa lahat. Yan. For this question po, I would like to affirm that yes, the non-acceptance or refusal to accept the award could be a ground for blacklisting. So there's a possibility kasi po when you join the bidding or when you join the procurement, there should be some sort of commitment on the part of the bidder na itutuloy-tuloy po niya yung pag-supply nung products, ng goods or nung services kapag po halimbawa na awardan na po siya ng contract. But katulad po ng example natin ngayon na sinasabi po ninyo na wala na po yung item or phase out na po siya sa market. So possibly na hindi siya ma-deliver ng supplier. In this case po, possibly rin po na yung inyong procuring entity na sinalihan will issue a notice of decision na iba-blacklist po kayo. For this, meron po tayong appeal mechanism sa ating blacklisting guidelines wherein you can file a motion for reconsideration so that the procuring entity will consider or reconsider whether to blacklist you or not. If in case po hindi favorable yung maging decision po ng procuring entity, you can still file a protest para po nang sa ganun po ay ma-elevate po yung pagde-decide on the matter sa head of the procuring entity. So these are the legal remedies na pwede po ninyong gawin once na naka-receive po kayo ng notice of blacklisting. Thank you po.
All right, thank you so much, Ma'am Carla, for sufficiently answering the first question on online blacklisting portal. So moving on to the second and last question for this topic. Which will prevail? Date of the effectivity of the blacklisting or date when the blacklisted entity was posted in the GPPB website?
Ayan, para po malinaw po sa ating lahat, it is the date of the effectivity of blacklisting that prevails when we talk of the kung hanggang kailan or mula kailan dapat na blacklist yung isang supplier or yung isang bidder. Yun pong ating pagpo-post sa GPPB website, this is not the consideration kung kailan mo masasabi na na-blacklist yung isang bidder. So meaning po, dapat kung ano yung date na nakalagay sa blacklisting order, yun po yung sinisunod natin na effectivity ng pagkaka-blacklist niya. Okay, so yun po.
Thank you so much, Ma'am Carla, for answering the last question. But meron pa po tayong additional question from the Zoom chat box. So let me just read it for you.
Sure po, sure.
All right. What if the procuring entity refuses to blacklist a preferred supplier for violating the mandatory standard for goods? What is the violation of the procuring entity for refusing to blacklist the supplier despite the complaint from another supplier? Is there a prescribed period for blacklisting a supplier for offense committed more than 5 years?
Sige po. Uunahin ko pong sagutin yung last question, no? Yung last question po, we will park this and maybe we can give them answer later on kung meron bang prescription, period of prescription, kung hanggang kailan ba pwede mag-blacklist yung isang procuring entity. For the first two questions po, I would like to reiterate po, no, that the blacklisting or initiation of the blacklisting does not only start with the procuring entity. It may also start from the other bidders or other parties outside the procuring entity, pero idadaan po ninyo siya sa PE po mismo. How if ayaw nila? There could be a possibility na hindi kasi na-establish ng procuring entity na may valid ground para po mag-blacklist. But at the same time, if you feel like meron talagang valid na ground yung isang supplier para ma-blacklist siya, then there could be a possibility that you can also check on yung section 65 of the rules natin sa implementing rules and regulations wherein it states there ano yung mga pwede nating maging grounds naman para maging sanction ng isang procuring entity if hindi niya ginagawa kung ano yung part niya bilang isang procuring entity, particularly kung ano yung function niya bilang ng mga taong involved dito bilang mga government officials. So meron po tayo doon under section 65 and also if I'm not mistaken yung rules po natin ng anti-graft and corruption po. So pwede rin po natin silang maging basis. But yung mga ganito pong cases, this can be filed before the Office of the Ombudsman po or Commission on Audit if applicable po. So we just have to establish din kung saan yung proper authority that we should file yung mga ganitong klase po ng cases. Thank you po.
All right, thank you so much, Ma'am Carla. And that concludes the open forum for the online blacklisting portal. So if you still have questions on online blacklisting portal, please let us know through the Zoom chat box and we will consolidate all your questions posted today until Friday. Also, for questions on offenses, we will be tackling ethics in government procurement. We shall cover that portion on Friday. So please do watch out for that. So once again, we would like to thank our second resource speaker this morning, Ms. Ivy Calusa, for leading a very informative discussion on the online blacklisting portal of the GPPB TSO. And of course, we would like to thank as well Ms. Carla Portugal for taking her time to be with us this morning. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, and enjoy.
All right, and there you have it, the first day of the online training on government procurement for micro and small enterprises. And just a recap of our session today, we had a discussion on the simplified 6th edition Philippine bidding documents for goods and infrastructure projects, wherein our research speaker, Engineer Baltasar Cahilig, discussed to us the contents of the simplified PBDs. Also, Engineer Bal emphasized earlier the salient changes in the new edition of the PBBs from 112 pages to 40 pages, which essentially diminishes confusion on the use of the bidding forms and facilitates the efficient and expedient conduct of government procurement projects. So with that, we hope that as you become familiarized with the contents and use of the PBDs, that would encourage you to take part in the procurement undertakings of the government. We also had a productive discussion on the online blacklisting portal, one of the newest online procurement platforms of the GPPB TSO that aims to automate and expedite the blacklisting process in government procurement. So with that, we highly encourage everyone to please do check the online procurement platforms developed by the GPPB TSO, like the PBD Builder portal and the online blacklisting portal, and see for yourself how these online procurement platforms would efficiently help you in your respective government procurement undertakings. And you have more to look forward for tomorrow's session that will further help you leverage your knowledge on government procurement rules and processes. So please do stay with us until Friday. And on that note, before we end today's session, allow me to make a few final reminders. First, please take time to answer the online survey on simplifying public procurement using the link or QR code flashed in your screens. We would like to remind again our Zoom participants to please register to the online training management system of the GBPB TSO by visiting the link flashed in your screens and using the control number emailed to you by our event secretariat. Also, please accomplish as well the participant's profile sheet through Google Forms by visiting the link or scanning the QR code flashed in your screens. Rest assured that the information gathered from you for this online training will be treated with utmost confidentiality consistent with the provisions of the Data Privacy Act. And lastly, for tomorrow's session, please log in at 8 o'clock in the morning here in Zoom using the credentials emailed to you by our training secretariat. And on that note, that concludes the first day of the online training on government procurement for micro and small enterprises. This has been your host, Maki Taguba. See you all again tomorrow. Thank you and stay safe.